Well, let's try this again after I unmute myself. Thanks guys for letting me know I had myself muted. So let's start this all over again. Welcome, Fence Fam. Thank you guys for showing up. I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas Eve. If you guys celebrate Christmas, we're right on the cusp of the holiday season. I guess we're in the holiday season, right? But we're right on the cusp of Christmas itself. So let's back up and say hello. What is up, Keon or Kaon or Kuyon? I did this whole thing, and I'm trying to remember exactly what I said. I'm going to go with Kaon. I hope I'm getting that right. But from Illinois, we're right here in the Southwest Missouri, so our brothers and sisters to the northeast. And then I said, what is up to Jonathan from Napa, California, where you're probably having incredible weather right now. The weather here in Southwest Missouri is not incredible. We're sitting at a balmy 21 degrees. It feels like 9 with the wind chill. So not great. And then I said, I want to apologize to you guys in the Midwest that are going through this cold snap because I think I'm responsible for it. A couple days ago on Tuesday, it was 61 degrees. We shot a video outside. You guys will see that upcoming. It's actually another post foam test. So that video is done well on the channel. We've got a lot of comments. It still performs well, so we decided to do a follow-up with a second brand of foam and give the first brand, Sika, kind of a second chance, another round at a review. Anyway, 61 degrees. And I was joking with my wife, and I said, it doesn't really feel like Christmas because, where's the winter weather? We're walking around with short sleeves on, and it feels nice out in the sun. And then fast forward to today, it's 9 degrees with the wind chill. So, Jonathan, I hope you're enjoying. I hope you're having enjoyable weather. What's up, Jose from Houston, Texas? I bet you guys are still nice and warm down there. Jackson Fence says my Christmas wish list isn't necessarily a standard tool, but rather a gimbal and a mic for my phone for recording fence walkthroughs. What advice can you give? Yeah, so great advice. I don't know. I don't actually have. I was trying to think if I had the gimbal here, and I would just show you guys what it is. It's the DJI Osmo. The one I used to use is one of the older Osmos. So there's a newer version out. Actually, I was talking to Dan the Fence King. They had just gotten an Osmo, whatever the most recent Osmo is. It sounded like he really liked it. I tell you what, though. So if you're going to do a live walkthrough, the phone and the mic with the gimbal is absolutely the right choice. What I would probably do if you're wanting to record it, what we use all the time are these are GoPros. This is a GoPro 8 Black. You can get, I don't have it here, but you can get one of those posable tripods. Like I said, we shot a video on Tuesday, so I don't have a lot of my video gear here. It's over in my office. But you can get one of those posable tripods. What are they? Gorilla Pods, I want to say they are. And you can attach this GoPro 8 directly to it. It's got a good microphone built in. And these things are bulletproof. You can throw them in the truck. You don't have to worry about them bouncing around and all that. You can actually keep this like in your glove box. Keep a couple batteries charged. They have USB chargers now for this, so you can keep it plugged in your USB. I would go, if you want to do live though, so obviously you can't do live directly from a GoPro, so you'd want to use your phone for that with a gimbal. And Rode makes a mic. Or actually, it's not Rode, it's Shure. This one, man, I wish I had that tripod. I should have brought it. Anyway, so what I've got is I've got a Gorilla Pod with a holder for my phone. So my phone goes right in there. But the nice thing about it is it's got a couple extra, what they call cold shoes, where you can just plug, you could slide this directly into that cold shoe, tighten it up. And this, you would get an adapter if you've got a newer iPhone, or if you have an Android with a mic port, this can plug directly into the mic port. And that, it's a powered microphone. So, and of course, it's got a windsock on it. That's a little bit crazy, but it really cuts down on wind noise. So GoPro would probably be my go-to, if we're talking about recorded fence walkthroughs, just because, like I said, these things are bulletproof. The mics on them are good. Yeah. And you're not carrying around like a bulky bunch of stuff. But if you're wanting to do live, the phone's away with the Gorilla Pod. Let's do this. So I'm not headed back to the office tonight. So, and tomorrow I'm going to spend with my family. Let's say this on Monday. I'll get a list together of the equipment I like to use when I'm shooting remotely, and I'll post it in the comments of this video. That way you guys will have them to go from there. All right. Keon says he's from Chicago. Welcome. So, Chicago, my wife's brother actually lives near about an hour north of you over in Kenosha. So, over in Wisconsin. So we usually drive up once a year or so in the summer to come visit you guys. I tell you what, we screwed up one year. We went, not screwed up, I guess, but we went in the, I want to say the spring. It might have been summer during Lollapalooza. It was the weekend we were up there. So, and I'm a little bit out of touch with that culture. So we jumped on the metro to come from Racine down into Chicago to do a day in the city sort of thing. And all the Lolla crowd was also jumping on the metro to go in. A little bit crazy train ride. And then this is where we got into the audio. So guys, I'm going to apologize. Welcome Jackson Finch from Canyon Johnson from Jackson, Tennessee. If I can get my mouth to work correctly. I appreciate you guys letting me know that the audio wasn't working. I had it muted, but yeah. I know I did the entire intro with no audio, and that was great. So thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you letting me know. Merry Christmas to you and yours. And then we got the audio working. All right. So Pete the Handyman's here. He's from Palm Bay, Florida. Welcome, Pete the Handyman. Built his first wood fence. That's awesome. I hope it went well. Hopefully the content was a little helpful for you there. Yeah. So here's the thing with fences, guys, and especially wood fences. I tell a lot of folks, it's intimidating. The first one you build is intimidating, just because you've never done it. You don't know what to do or what not to do, or what pitfalls to avoid, that sort of thing. But especially with wood fence, if you take your time and keep an eye towards the attention to detail, it just works out, right? With chain link fence, there's a lot more to worry about, as far as all the fittings, what fittings to use, what's the difference between a tension band and a brace band and all that. But with a wood fence, at least, you only have a handful of components. You've got your posts, your rails, your pickets. And then, of course, if you've got gates, that's all the hardware that goes along with that. But, yeah. So Pete says, so in Palm Bay, Florida, there's no cedar available. So we're seeing the tail end of that here. Cedar's still kind of hard to get a hold of here in the Midwest, specifically Southwest Missouri. Pressure treated is coming back online. So we went through quite a while where pressure treated just wasn't readily available, and the pressure treated you could get your hand on was something like 4 or 5 times the price. The price is coming back down somewhat to normal. Where we pre-pandemic, we were about $7.50 for a 4x4x8 pressure treated pine post. Now we're at about $9.50. So still a little bit more expensive, but not the $18, $19, $20 I saw in some places for a 4x4. So coming back down to earth. I hope cedar becomes available in your area somewhat soon. Burn it on in here. What is up, buddy? Thank you. Videos are top notch. We try. So I can't take the credit for this, right? I mean, we've got a great editor. I've got a great videographer. I literally just sit here and do the talking, and then the behind the scenes team kind of puts it all together and makes it look nice. But I appreciate your comment. If you guys know me at all, I'm not super great at taking comments or compliments. So yeah, awesome, Pete. Glad it came out really good. Well, guys, I tell you what, I don't really have an agenda for today. I'm just going to kind of go with the flow, say hi to you guys as you guys show up and say hello and let me know where in the world you guys are coming in from. So far we've got Illinois, Texas, Florida, California. Hope I didn't miss anybody. I'm going to scan real quick. Tennessee. Can't forget Jackson, Tennessee. Guys are only about 4 hours from us. But, Houston, Texas, Napa, California. So let me know where you guys are from in the comments. I always like to see where in the world everyone's tuning in from. What was it, 2 weeks ago? gosh, 2 weeks ago we had a gentleman from London. A lot of the comments that we get, not a lot, but a fair amount of comments we get are from actually from Australia and New Zealand, which with the time difference there, I don't think they'll be tuning in with us right now. But anyway, yeah, it's crazy how widely varied the audience is. But if you guys were tuning in last week, we actually cut the live broadcast short last week because I was waiting on a phone call or a text message saying it was time to head to the hospital for maybe our little newest addition to show up. So I did get the phone call. Well, first I got a text message, then I got a phone call that said we ought to go. The doctor called and said we should go check in and get everything checked out. We did that. We ended up staying in the hospital. We were there for like 5 hours. That was a trip, but I kind of expected this going in. This is my third kiddo, so once you've been there a couple of times, you kind of know it's a hurry up and wait scenario if you're the Papa Bear. So did the driving over there, got us all checked in, and then I really just sat in a chair in the corner and just kind of stayed out of the way. But we were kind of right in the middle between going to labor delivery or getting sent home. And so we kind of sat right there in the middle for, like I said, about 5 hours. And finally the decision was made. The doctor came back in. We'd seen the doctor a few times, and she came in. She's like, well, we're going to send you guys home because it's not progressing, and we're going to give you this shot, and it'll try to hold things off. And anyway, still no baby. We're still on baby watch. So technically the baby's arrival date is scheduled for January the 4th. But the doctor said it's really just kind of any time. So we're hoping she holds off the next couple of days. Let's, kind of Christmas craziness get taken care of and out of the way. And then we'll be ready for our newest member of the Fence fam. What is up? If I remember right, Zach, I'm thinking, because I've seen you obviously participate every week, and I really appreciate that. I think it's Zach's. But welcome. I don't know about wisdom. I mean, I'll talk for a while, but I don't know if much of it will categorize as wisdom. What is up, Fence King? Dan is in the house. Dan, I actually mentioned you a few minutes ago. We had a question about what equipment to use with a phone to do on site. It was actually he's actually making a Christmas list. So he didn't want new tools. He just wanted some equipment to do on-site walkthrough videos with his phone. So I remember you had told me, we had talked on the phone that you had the newest Osmo. I don't remember what the newest, which number we're up to, the DJI Osmo. So why don't you drop that in the comments below, which Osmo you've got and your experience with it. Also, I didn't remember if you did an external microphone with that, or if you're using the internal microphone with your phone. So yeah, let us know what you're using, Dan. I'd be really interested to hear that. Spring, Texas. So we got 2 Texans in the house, at least 2 Texans in the house. What's the normal lifespan of a pressure treated fence, and how can I make it last longer? All right. So we've kind of talked about this in the past. It's going to depend on the treatment, right? So here in the Midwest, we have ACQ and MCQ, a couple different treatments that are prominent here. I want to say last week in the comment section, someone was saying they were in Florida, but there's a different treatment that they have down there. It wasn't ACQ or MCQ, so maybe you guys might have a different treatment used in pressure treated post. So when I'm talking about lifespan, it's my kind of my experience with either ACQ or ACQ is predominantly used here. MCQ you see a lot like in the home stores, specifically. I think Home Depot carries MCQ. The other ones carry ACQ. Don't quote me on that. That's not written in stone. That's just the best as I can recall. But anyway, unfortunately, pressure treated pine, we're seeing lifespan of 10 years or so, 10 years or less on post rot. So that's the number one reason for for fence replacement is post rot. So, we replaced one this week that a few sections of a fence. We didn't install it. Someone else installed it with pressure treated pine, and it was like 5 or 6 years old. So now, granted, it was in a shaded area that was damp and it held moisture. That doesn't help. I get it. But it's not like, we also rip out fences that are 35, 40 years old that were installed with CCA, just, I don't want to say the original treatment. It might not be the original one, but the one that was around for the longest. And it was just a better treatment. Unfortunately, It has health risks. It has it poses health risk if you're in contact with it, prolonged contact. So they replaced it with ACQ and MCQ, at least in our area. So anyway, 10 years or so. Now, the second part of your question is how can I make it last longer? So, post saver, well, you've already got your post in the ground, but if you had asked this question before you put your post in, there's a sleeve called a post saver. It's a lot like shrink wrap in how it's applied. So it's like a sleeve you put over the post, right around where ground level is going to be. So if you're setting these posts 2 foot deep, 24 inches, you would have it 26 or 28 inches from the bottom of the post, so that it's above grade just a little bit, and then it extends below grade for a while, for a ways for, and this is where it gets outside of my experience. I demoed them a few times when we were installing wood post, but not enough to be super familiar with them. But anyway, the premise is you apply heat, it shrinks and bonds to that wood post, so that then it keeps the microbes and all the goodness in the soil. That first 6 to 8 inches of soil is usually where all the microbes and bugs and everything else is going to try to get in that post and promote rot. It's going to be a shield to keep them out. So post saver would have been my first shot, but your posts are already in the ground. So the next thing I would do would probably be look into what's called fence armor. So fence armor is an aluminum sleeve that goes on the outside of the post, and what it does is it protects the post from weed eaters. So weed eaters, I mean, everyone's familiar with a yard that gets maintained a lot. The wood post, that square corners get rounded off right there at the grass line, because the maintenance company or the homeowner is doing the maintenance themselves. Wants to get every last piece of grass trimmed down, so they're going to trim right along that post, and it ends up deteriorating and eating away at the outer what do I want to say? Outer layer of that wood post. So fenced armor protects against that. Lastly, I would suggest staining and sealing the fence. So staining and sealing it is going to, even on a pressure treated fence, it's going to aid or it's going to supplement the treatment in the pressure treated post and rails and pickets, just to try to keep water out, try to prevent rot as much as possible. Quality stain and sealer would be, we promote Stain and Seal Experts. That's a company that I use. We like them a lot, and actually we've got an announcement coming with Stain and Seal Experts next week. I didn't want to do it this week, just being a holiday week. I wasn't sure how many of you guys were going to join us and all that. So, but yeah, I would absolutely suggest staining and sealing that fence. Now, since it's pressure treated, so the next question is, how long do you wait on a pressure treated fence before you stain and seal it? And the answer is always, it depends. You used to hear rules of thumb like you got to wait a year, or you have to wait 6 months, or you have to wait whatever. Really, what I would recommend is get a moisture meter. You can pick moisture meters up at a lot of your home stores. We get ours from Amazon. They've got a couple prongs where you can stick it into the wood. It tests the moisture content of the wood, because really what you want is, whether you're talking to people that say 6 months, a year, what they're really saying is you've got to wait for that lumber to dry out where it'll readily accept the stain. Pick you up a moisture meter. I think they're $25, $30 off Amazon. And you want to wait till your moisture content's below 15%. That way it's going to help accept that stain. The stain we use, Stain and Seal Experts, is an oil-based. So you want to wait for it to get nice and dry, where you'll soak up all of that nice oil stain and sealing. And then at 15%, there'll be more of the stain and seal product than there will be water. So it'll actually help try to expel the last little bit of that water out of there. So really long-winded answer, and I apologize. If you'd like to break that down a little bit more, drop some follow-up questions. We're here, guys, for the next couple hours. So I'm happy to help however I can. This is a great question. Jackson Fence asks, 2020 is wrapping up. What were some of your bigger wins? What was your biggest struggle outside of material shortage? Yeah, so that was the material shortage would have probably been the biggest one, right? So outside of that, the biggest struggle would probably be labor shortage, would be a very close second, So, and as we talk about extending, the unemployment benefits that, through the CARES Act or COVID related and all that, is it's hard to compete with the government. If they're offering, whatever it is, at one point they're offering $600 a week plus standard unemployment benefits, and it's hard to compete with that as a business. So I would say labor shortage would probably, finding quality labor, because we had an incredible amount of business to get done. We just had to source the labor and the materials before we could get it done. Let's see, what was some of your bigger wins? If we're talking in terms of revenue, so typically we look at projects that are average sale price between $4,500 and $5,000. We sold two substantial aluminum jobs this year in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. So that was exciting. Actually, right now we're in the middle of one. We set the post, and then there's a concrete contractor that came in after we set the post, was going to pour a weed wall underneath where the panels are going to go. So we ordered a little bit longer posts. They're going to pour that wall, and then once that wall is poured and cured, we're going to come in and install the panels. Now, with the weather we're having, that's probably going to be a bit of a process. But and it was, I want to say it's, I don't know, it's 400 some odd feet. So anyway, quite a bit of weed wall. But that's probably the biggest win of the year. I'd like to hear your guys's. What's your guys' biggest win, and what was your biggest struggle? We're here for a while, so let's get comfortable and kind of talk this out. All right. I thought so, Zach. I just want to make sure. All right. So Dan Fitzking says he uses a DJI Osmo 4. Make sure you do the update so you can shoot in 4K. Oh, that's right. So I remember Dan called down and or called up, whichever. I guess he's south of me. But anyway, called me up, said, "Hey, how do you shoot in 4K?" And we kind of troubleshot that for a little bit. So the Osmo that I have, that I was using, doesn't require a DJI program that the new one, that the 4 does. So I wasn't very helpful at all with that. We also use the same wireless mic as you, Joe. I can't remember the name. So here's what I'd said. So I've got this Shure mic, and Shure is spelled SHURE, and it can plug into just a cold shoe, which just means it's a, I should have been better prepared for a video about shooting video. But anyway, a cold shoe is just a port that this slides into and tightens down. And then you've got a mic jack that can go into a mic adapter on a phone, or if you're on an Android phone, I think they still have mic ports or headphone ports that plugs right into there. Yeah, I like those. I tell you what, give me just a second. But don't knock my studio down. A wireless mic that we've been using for a little bit, actually I just started using it a few weeks ago, is Rode. Well, that focus is just not great at all, is it? Rode, spelled RODE. It's a wireless mic. It's a wireless mic. There's two parts of this. Oh, okay. So this is actually part of the gear we use. This is a Sony A6600. It's what we went to using after I was using my phone. But you have a receiver here. You have the Rode receiver and a Rode transmitter. Now, this transmitter has a microphone built in. So I literally just goes in my pocket and wirelessly transmit to the receiver. The receiver has an audio jack that then goes into the audio jack in the A6600. But this could also go into a headphone microphone adapter, like in the bottom of an iPhone, or Android, I believe, still has the mic jack, so it can go in there as well. So, and when I say cold shoe, all it is this port right here that doesn't have power. So actually, all of these are cold shoes. None of these are powered jacks. So some cameras, actually, so the Sony has a hot shoe. So it has power for like a flash or something like that, but we don't do photography with it. We do video, so we've got a different little rig set up here. But yeah, so Rode, RODE wireless mic is who we've been using lately. I want to say there's a description. There should be a description in this video. Let me do this. Give me 1 second. Let me pull up the YouTube version of this video right now. So right now I'm streaming through a program called StreamYard. But yeah, so let me get into my YouTube content, see this video. Look, check out the description of this video. Let's see. So if we scroll down, we look at gear we use. Coolest clock ever is a cool clock. I've actually got it on my desk right now. Main camera, second camera. So main camera that you guys are looking at right now is a Sony A6500, which they don't make anymore. So the second camera we use is an A6600. Both nice cameras. Wireless lav mic is one of the links there. Yep. That takes you right to the Rode microphones, wireless Go compact transmitter receiver solution. So that's a shame. It says it's currently unavailable, so we'll have to look into that. So anyway, so it looks like right above it is an ad. Consider these available items for $250 is what these go for. So click on that link. Right above it, there's an ad. The one I have in the link actually has a lav mic. Or lav mic. I don't know how you pronunciate those. Yeah, so you could easily do one. I don't use it with the lav mic, so I should probably change it to the other ones that don't have it anyway. I just, like I said, I use this, put it right in my shirt. It picks me up really well. Yeah. So, and of course, if you guys want to talk video, like video shooting, video editing, I would love to talk about that as well. Or I'll answer your fence questions, whichever. Like, honestly, guys, whatever direction you want to go with this, I am on board for. I'd like to know what you recommend for figuring out how much material, if needed. How do you do it for your business for a wood fence? Is there a program that you use or a formula? Yep. So we use Job Nimbus. Job Nimbus is who we use for bidding, CRM, scheduling. Really, we use it for everything. We've kind of bounced around in the last couple of years between different CRMs, different bidding software. Before we just transferred back to Job Nimbus. We used Job Nimbus a year and a half, 2 years ago. But since then, we used Responsive Bid, which is a really nice bidding software. It looks super slick. It's a great presentation. It looks awesome, but it doesn't do material takeoffs. You basically just enter a per foot price, and then you enter, like, if we're talking about 6 foot privacy, cedar materials on steel post. Now, before I talk about dollar amounts, please understand this is not real dollar amounts. I'm not telling you what you should charge. These aren't the numbers that I charge. This is not an antitrust related conversation. But say random numbers, 6 foot privacy fence, $50 a foot. It's not $50 a foot. We'll use that as an example. So you'd plug in the back end of this responsive bid program, you would plug in 6 foot privacy, cedar on steel is $50 a foot. And then every time we go through a consultation, you would then just click on, hey, the project parameters are 200 feet, and they want to price 6 foot privacy with pine on pine, with cedar on pine, with cedar on steel. And then it would just pull all the numbers from the back end, plug it in, and create a presentation. It was super slick. The problem is it can only do it by the foot. And as you guys know, bidding by the foot is incredibly dangerous because it doesn't take all the factors. What it does is it takes an average of the figures, how many posts do you use on average per 100 feet, how much labor do you use on average per 100 feet, and then averages out to get a per foot price. Pretty dangerous. So what we use now is Job Nimbus. Let's do this. So we're going to play a game where I try to figure out the technology here real quick. I'm going to try, because it's a web-based application, and there is a way to show you guys my screen, what I'm looking at. So let me log into Job Nimbus and see if I can't show you guys what this looks like. Okay, so I'll make sure I get this right and I'm not. So here's the thing, and this conversation comes up a lot in the fence forums about antitrust laws. It's illegal to have a conversation between one professional and another about the price they charge for their product. And there's guys that fall and gals that fall on both sides of this discussion. Some say it's absolute nonsense, that it's not an antitrust related conversation. It's just two people talking about what they charge for fence as a comparison. Um, and that's probably where I fall in it. I don't see how it's an antitrust violation when gas stations put the price of gas up on a big billboard, and then lo and behold, every gas station is within a penny of each other. That seems like an antitrust situation, right? But the laws are the laws. And I particularly do not want to be the one that tests that law out. Does it apply to fencing or not? So we're going to play by the rules, and we're going to follow, we're not going to talk about pricing. We're not going to talk about what I charge, what other people charges, what other people charge. Yeah. So let's go through this. Let's see if Joe can play with technology here. Hang with me one. All right, I'm going to take this down because I'm going to try to show you my screen. Share screen. Okay. I'm sure this is super interesting right now. I apologize. Okay, let's see if this works. Application window, Chrome tab. Okay, here we go. So, and I'm actually just going to make this full size so you guys can see the entire thing. So this is just a test account that we have within Job Nimbus. These numbers are completely fictional. They're not based in reality. This is not what I charge. This is not what you should charge. This is for educational purposes only, etc. and onward. All right, here we go. So in this Job Nimbus, we've got, a lot of these just tests. This is just where I get in and play around with things to see how it's working. But you can see that we created a mock estimate here, the proposal. And so basically what this does is you give it every one of the, pieces of material that you want to use. Like this one was 560 foot of 5 foot residential black chain link top rail and bottom wire. So you had your 560 foot of wire, Fabrice. That's not a word. It should be fabric. And then you got your black top rail, hog rings for tension wire, your bottom wire, tension wire, that sort of thing. You input all of your fittings in here. And then this mock one had a couple single gates. So you've got your hardware, you've got a couple posts, you've got your concrete. So in this one, we forgot to put our gates in here. So that's a good learning lesson here. So these have all the hardware, but we didn't input the actual gate frames themselves. So, and that might have been the point of this. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do mock-ups, and then I'll run the staff through them to say, what's wrong with this situation and how would we fix it. 16 in post hookups. So we got 16 hookups there, tension bars, tension bands, brace bands, band bolts, etc. All right. And we did some random 8 sections of 2 foot. So this is how we do the pricing. Now, this actually isn't the proposal I would send to the clients. So I would actually edit this because the clients don't want to see, they might want to see how much, per item is, but you could really get in the weeds with that. The way it gets to this is you just enter in the cost that you would pay for one of these, a hog ring, or what you'd pay per foot on tension wire and etc., what your markup is and what the end price is. But I want to hide the line items just because I don't want to get too into the weeds with this with the customer. I don't want to really, I don't want to get too far in the weeds because a lot of times this just confuses the whole conversation. I want to hide the line items, and then I want to save it. Save estimate. So now this is just going to break it down. It's going to say we've got 560 foot at this fictional, not true price. And we've got 2 single gates. We've got a 10-foot double gate. We've got 16 hookups, and we got 8 sections of 2 rail wooden fence for a grand total of this. So the customer says, yep, looks good. I'm ready to move forward. All we would do is then we would just convert it to a work order. It thinks for a second, and it says, here you are. Now, we do want our guys to see the line items. We want them to see what all that we have bid so they know what to pick. Or optimally, you've got some guys in the yard that are going to pre-pick this for the crews that are coming up or the projects coming up for the crews. So you would save the work order and boom. So now you guys know I'm looking for 560 foot of wire, which actually this would just be 600 foot of wire. 5'11" gauge black coated is not a standard stock item for us. So if it's an order item, we would go to the nearest unit. So 50 foot is what typically comes in a roll. So this would actually be 600 feet. The rail would be whatever even sections of 21 foot, 560 calls for, and so forth and onward. But anyway, this gives them a pick list of exactly what they need. So, yeah. I hope that went well for you guys. I hope you can see what we're talking about. So if you guys want to drill in more on that, let me know. But Job Nimbus is who we use. So, yeah. That's how we figure out how much material we need and, all that. What do y'all use to nail cedar pickets, ring shank, stainless steel nails? I doubt you all use galvanized nails or decking type screws. Thanks. So here's things, Zach. We typically use hot dip galvanized ring shank nails. The majority predominantly install cedar. Now that treated pine prices are coming back down, we'll likely start offering treated pine again. But for the most part, it's cedar. It's Western Red cedar. We don't have the issues with bleeding that you see a lot on the internet. You see a lot of these fence groups, and I don't know if it's if it's the branded nails or what's the contributing factor. We offer the upgrade into stainless steel nails if that's important to the client. The problem is, so say it's a box of 3,600 galvanized ring shake nails is roughly $96 to $98. A box of stainless steel nails is roughly $450. So it's a significant difference when we're talking about, the price of nails. It's significant enough that we don't offer it as a standard. But we offer it as an upgrade. If the customer's, really concerned about it, we can certainly talk to them about upgrading into the stainless steel. That being said, we're taking down fences that are 30, 35 years old that were installed with galvanized nails. Now, then they weren't ring shank. They were smooth bore. Some of them were screw bore, but most of them were just smooth bore. And we're not seeing issues with, nail rust and failure due to nail rust. We do use coated deck screws when we're attaching the Postmaster steel posts to the 2x4s. You have to screw through the Postmaster post to get into the 2x4, so we'll use a coated deck screw for that. Does moisture content need to be lower for oil-based than water-based? Yeah, typically it does. Oil-based, you want it to be 15% or below. I'm not familiar with the content requirements for water-based. We don't use water-based. The reason being, I like oil-based more than water-based is because oil naturally repels water. Water does not naturally repel itself, so it typically has to have additives added to it to make it repel itself or make it repel other water. So with oil, it's hard to go wrong. It also moisturizes the wood every time you reapply it. Depending on what your schedule is, 3 to 5 years. And I liken it to leather boots. If you're polishing up a pair of leather boots, if you're waterproofing a pair of leather boots, you don't waterproof them with a water-based, scenario as a sealant. Typically, it's some sort of oil, mink oil, etc. So we use oil-based stain and sealant. All right, Rob. Hilarious, but welcome to the chat. Yeah, so Mr. Fence is building their YouTube studio. I'm incredibly interested to watch you build this out. I love watching studio builds. So we actually, so I haven't announced this here yet. So we closed on a new building or a new set of buildings on Monday of this week. So over the next few months, we'll be transitioning from and it's actually right next door, which is super convenient. So we're not necessarily moving, we're just expanding. And part of this building within this building is a caretaker's quarters. Now, in our city, you cannot have an apartment in a commercially zoned property. So this is not an apartment in any way, shape, or form. It looks like an apartment, but it's actually caretaker's quarters. And in the bedroom of these caretaker's quarters, we're going to create that YouTube studio. So what I want to do, what we're planning on doing is as we get into that, shoot video on, transforming a standard room into a recording studio, a YouTube studio. I kind of wish I'd done that here. So the room that I'm broadcasting from right now is just a leased office. It's a shared office space. It's 10 by 12 is, I think, the measurements, and it is tight. It is small. So literally just barely right off camera. I've got 2 lights here, and then, of course, we got the background. And I could almost reach out and touch tables on either side of me here that are holding, we've got camera gear, we've got props, we've got just all sorts of stuff you need for content creation. It's a little tight. So we're excited to expand into the new location. Unfortunately, the new location right on cue. So behind the screen is a bunch of storage that just fell down. So we've got a hard case. This is what we transport all of like the video gear in if we're flying somewhere. Nice orange, of course, hard case. And then you couldn't time that any better when we're talking about studio stuff. These are actually acoustic foam tiles. So they're 12-inch by 12-inch, just acoustic foam. It's kind of hard to see through the plastic, but we bought a bunch of this acoustic foam because this is just a standard. This is just a standard office to where it's really echoey. It's just regular drywall. So if we didn't have all this acoustic foam up, it would echo like crazy. So we're going to be building out a new studio, and I'm going to bring you guys along. I am super excited. But so what I was going to say before my set started falling apart was it's an old building. So it was built back in the 50s, which means it's not exactly wired for internet right now. It was a manufacturing facility before we bought it. They actually they take Sprinter vans and they turn them into ambulances, which is an incredibly cool process to watch. We got to see it every day because they built them right next door. But it doesn't use the most technology ever. So they didn't need to have it wired for internet. We need internet because every part of our process is based with technology, is involved with technology in some way. Whether I've just shown you guys the Job Nimbus platform we use, that's online. So every one of our workstations needs to have access to the internet so they can access Job Nimbus. If we're talking about the YouTube studio, I'm obviously, producing this live. I'm sending this out live via the internet. So we need internet access up there. We don't have it yet. So we have to rewire the entire building for networking and the entire building. So we're going from right now we're in 1,400 square feet, and that's a mix of office and shop. About 800 of that's office. The rest of it's shop. Not a lot of space to work with. The new space is roughly 11,400 square feet. It's a lot bigger. We got a lot more room for activities. We've got some big plans for it. But we also have to wire all that for internet. It's going to be a little bit. But I'm going to bring you guys with us when we start building out the YouTube studio. Jackson Fence wants to know, what's the gate system that you use for wood gates? Remember you talking about it before. Is it hinges you buy or the whole thing? Do you tan gates for wood? Not sure the last part of that question. So I actually did a video on it here on the YouTube channel. I think it's how fence professionals. Let's look it up. I think it's like how fence professionals install gates or something like that. Let's see. Yep, how professional fence builders build a strong gate. So it's like, I don't know, seven or eight videos down, maybe 10 videos down, and it goes over our whole system. So the hinges are called shark hinges. The hinges and latch, shark hinges and shark latches. The gate frames, they sell adjustable gate frames. We just manufacture our own. It works out better. We've got a fabrication shop anyway. We have fabricators on staff. They might as well make them in-house rather than buy them from someone else. But if you're not set up for that, they sell the adjustable frames as well. It's Forney Fence, Forney, Forney Fence. They are the importer of those hinges. and latches. So yeah. So we buy them. We buy just the hinges and latches. We make the frames. I'm not sure about the last part of your question. I'm not sure. That's right. That's right. Shout out to Dan Blank, the Fence King, and Sean King, Mr. Fence. Both those guys are incredible. I love watching. So both these guys are incredible. If you're a fence professional, jump into the fence professionals Facebook pages. There's a ton of value there. So both the guys that Jackson Fence mentioned, Fence King and Mr. Fence, produce a ton of content in these groups, and we're all of the same mind, right? That providing education to putting more education out into the world out via the internet, YouTube and Facebook, helps all the fence community, helps the fence community as a whole. And a rising tide raises all the ships, sort of thing. So huge shout out to you guys. Yeah, so I like this too. So Mr. Fence bids by the fence section rather than by the foot, because bidding by the foot, I mean, it gets dangerous. And unfortunately, I would say probably the majority of new fence contractors just bid solely by the foot. And the reason I say that is because that's typically the question that's asked in all of these Facebook groups is, what do you guys charge per foot for 4-foot chain link? And that question usually gets shut down pretty quick because of the U.S. antitrust laws. And then it starts this whole conversation. This happens once a week or so where everyone says, well, that's nonsense. We should be able to talk about prices. I get it, but I'm not going to be the one that tests it, because to test it, they'll come after you, and then you have to take it to the Supreme Court and argue your case, and they argue their case, and then you come up with a decision, the Supreme Court does, if they hear it at all. And I just don't have the inclination to spend that kind of money. So we just don't talk about pricing. We use a Dingo 8-inch auger yesterday. Some of the holes moved off the line, rocks in Stone County. Yep. Question, what do y'all dig your holes with? If you already asked this, let me know. Yeah, go car. Hey, look at that. Wolf Commander says Springfield Cardinals. What is up? I love that shout out. Springfield Cardinals are our favorite local team because we love the St. Louis Cardinals. So yeah, we use a Dingo, but we've also used the Vermeer. We're probably going to upgrade to the Bobcat. They've got the MT100 out, which is essentially an upgraded MT85. It's MT85 with weight packs on it. So we use Dingoes though, and that can happen where the holes can wander. So typically, if that happens, we shave the hole out with a pair of hand diggers. So all of our trucks still come fully prepared with hand diggers and rock bars for just such an occasion. We use a Toro Dingo with an 8-inch auger also. The nice thing is with that 8-inch auger, so we use Postmaster Post. So you've got a lot of room in that hole to move that Postmaster Post around. A lot more room than you'd have, say, with like a 4x4x8 treated pine post. Very welcome, Zach. All right, Rob, I get it. I did say ask me anything, 100%. So, but my wife watches this show, and I'm not going to talk about butts, just not, it gets me in trouble, Rob. Yeah, Wolf Commander's got it right. Slow down on the eggnog, bro. So Zach says, a second Wolf Commander's question. I'm a small-time fence builder, so I have a set of manual diggers and a steel auger. Yeah, so that's how we did it for years. Growing up, coming up through the fence company, when I was on the set crew, that's all we had. We had hand diggers exclusively with rock bars. Only after I moved up to the finish crew, did my dad decide to invest in, we had little beavers. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but we've still got them over in the parts junkyard. We've got a couple little beavers sitting over there. But they were good little machines. They had as much down pressure as you were willing to put into them. So then we went from little beaver to those 2-man augers, because those seem to have a little bit more digging capacity or torque capacity, but you got 2 guys holding them, so you have as much torque as you're willing to put into it there also. And then the next step was up into the Toro Dingos, which is what we operate now. But I've used the Vermeer equipment. I like it. The controls are a little twitchy for me. And And would I use it if I was the one using it? Absolutely, that's fine. But what concerns me with twitchy equipment is when it's 6 o'clock in the morning and I've got some guys loading up equipment and they're still a little foggy. The coffee hasn't kicked in yet that morning, and they're running one of these things out. All of our trailers are deck over, so they're a little bit higher off the ground anyway. So they're running one of these machines up a trailer, and the control twitches on them and throws that thing off a trailer, throws them off a trailer. I don't know. I mean, you can invent all these crazy scenarios, but yeah, a little too twitchy for me. So we've demoed the Bobcat. We demoed the Bobcat MT85, which MT100 is essentially the same machine with a weight pack on it, so it gives a little bit more down pressure. So that's probably what we'll go up into is that MT100, the Bobcat MT100. But like I said, we just bought a new building, so that conversation will probably wait for a little while longer. We'll get another year or two out of those Toro Dingos, I bet. Yeah, so great questions. Thank you, Wolf Commander. Appreciate it. When I muted myself in the very beginning, part of the intro was I was wishing everyone a Merry Christmas and a Merry Christmas Eve, if that's what you celebrate. Yeah, as we're closing out the year, I hope everyone had a profitable year and a successful year and a prosperous year. It was a trying year for sure, but here we are. We're coming on the other side of the year, and hopefully 2021, hopefully we wake up, January 1st, 2021, and this was all like a really bad dream. We'll just say, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen or heard or done. And then we just move forward. And then we're off into a whole new year. That would be incredible. What is up, Jace? How are you? Where are you from? We're trying to keep track of where everybody's from here. We've got some Texas people. We've got some California folks. We have guys in Florida, Louisiana. We've got Fence King down in Louisiana. We got Mr. Fence. He's up in Indiana. We've got Illinois in the house. Tennessee's in the house. What else we got? Who else is here? If I haven't said hi to you yet, drop it in the comments below. We always like to keep track of where everybody's from. Oh, yeah, we had Chicago, Illinois in the house. That's right. All right, so Zach, what would a decent used Dingo run? I knew they're around 30-ish. Yeah, so, man, all these things seem to be in the same ballpark, the 30 to 45, 30 to 50 range. New. The Dingo, I want to say, now this was probably 3 years ago we bought the Dingos that we have now. Bought them used. They're probably halfway through their life, I'd say. Well maintained though. I want to say we paid 14 or 15 a piece for them. I'd have to go back and look to be sure, but that feels right. 14 or 15. Of course, like I said, that was several years ago, and the price of these machines has probably gone up too. But I would say anytime you're in probably that half price range, depends on the quality though too, right? I mean, if someone's just absolutely run the treads off this thing and not maintained it, and it sounds horrible and all that, it'd probably be less. Or if it's a year old and it's immaculate and it's got all the options, it'd probably be more. But the important thing with I was going to say with these, but really with any of the machines is maintenance. Do they have a maintenance record or maintenance log for the equipment? Was it done on a schedule or was it done sporadically? If there's not a maintenance log, then it was probably done sporadically, because if you don't have the documents, you probably didn't do it, is kind of what we feel like when we're buying equipment. But I would still say 14 or 15 feels right. All right, Jason's in Texas. What is up, Texas? You're like, I think you're our third or fourth Fence fam down in Texas. I would love to be down in Texas. Right now it's 9 degrees with wind chills. 21 feels like 9 right now. So I'd rather not be here. I bet Texas is a bit warmer. All right. Yeah, I get it. So little beavers are nice. We've used them. We used them until we couldn't use them anymore. Until they just quit. Actually, so my dad bought 2 of them at a Fence Tech, and it was, God, I don't even know. So let me do some quick math. It was probably 15 years ago, maybe. It might have been 20 years. I bet it's 15 years ago. He bought a couple of them, and there's not a lot to them. You can maintain them pretty easily. But they just got to where they started crapping out, and you can order parts for them, but they're not super easy to come by. So one quit, and then we used it as a parts piece for the second one to keep it up and running. And then the second one quit, and we just never bought any more. So, but they're nice machines. The problem is, and like I get it, fence guys say this all the time. Problem is, we've got a lot of rocks here. Everybody's got rocks, right? But we've got some significant rocks though, and I think that's what tore those things up. Is what tends to get tore up is that shaft in between, because the motor sits at the far side of this thing. It's got a shaft that comes all the way up into that gearbox, I guess, the orbital box that then the auger attaches up into. So that auger driver, orbital box, whatever you call it, that shaft into it always got tore up. So, and those aren't like common pieces, or I'm sure they're proprietary. You have to get them from whoever makes these groundhog units. That's what always tears up. So just because the guys probably put too much pressure on them when they're going through rocks, because they don't want to have to get the rock bars out, and just tears them up. So, yeah. And then what also happens is they get backed over. So for a time we were running half-ton trucks, and they've got a truck hitch on them. So you hook them up to your trucks and off you go until the guys pull into a gas station and someone blocks them in. So then they're not thinking about it, and they go to back up and they back over the things. That happened to the first one. That happened several times to the first one. So anyway, yeah, little beavers are great if you've got decent soil and you don't back over them. Yeah, 2-man augers, they'll take you for a ride. They will absolutely take you for a ride. But because they'll take you for a ride, you don't put as much down pressure on them. So because if you hit something hard, then bad things are coming. So you tend to be a little bit more gentle with them. It's a trade-off. Yeah, so man, I demoed an MT85 and I liked it a lot. I really did. I like it a lot. So, and Bobcat, I don't know if they're still doing it, but over the summer we got a bunch of mail from them, probably because we demoed one of those. They're 0% interest, or I forget what the lease terms were. The lease terms were super affordable, but I knew, so this building that we just got into, or we just signed on, that we're moving into, we've been working on it since June. It's been a lengthy deal. Just because, a little bit of negotiation on price. I mean, the main office building was built in the 50s. It was actually, so interesting story, is actually a house, and then behind that house sat a barn. And then over the years, it's had, 4, 5, 6 owners since the 50s or something. So, well, maybe not that many owners, but you get the point. Over time, someone connected the house with the barn and made it all one building. So the front office is the house, or part of the house. They grew from the house too, and then over into the barn. So anyway, it's kind of I don't know. It's a good building, but it's just kind of a wonky layout. So we negotiated on price for quite a while on that, and then so we used SBA secured funds for part of the building, or for part of the loan. And with SBA comes all of their committees and decision makers and all that. And they decided that we needed to have an ecological survey done because at one time back in 57, so it's 5 lots. One of the lots back in 57 had a filling station on it. I don't know, but someone came up with a survey, a county assessor survey from the 50s that showed there's a filling station. So they had to do an ecological survey, which is basically they bring out, a big piece of drilling equipment, and they take a core sample and they send it off to Kansas City, and Kansas City takes a few weeks to do it. Anyway, we demoed it, and then we demoed the MT85, then we started the negotiations on the building, and I realized the building was going to be a substantial investment, and so those talks kind of got put on hold. But when we do buy one, I will likely be looking at, so they're not manufacturing the MT85s moving forward. There's still some in inventory throughout the United States, but the factories have been switched over to MT100s, which, to my understanding, to the explanation the dealer gave us was the MT100 is the exact same chassis, exact same everything with it as an MT85, but with a weight pack on the front to give you more weight above or forward of the front axles. I mean, we use track machines, but on the front of the chassis to give you more down weight, more down pressure. So yeah, we'll be looking into those. Jackson Fence complete a fence this week. First fence in this new subdivision. Sometimes we'll bid more competitive to be the first in the neighborhood. More fences seem to always follow. Yeah, so yeah, that's, and then the follow-up question. So one of two means follow-up. So do you ever bid more competitively in new areas or areas with high visibility for purpose of advertising? We do. I think it's smart advertising. I think it's smart business. I'll put this one up here just so folks know what we're talking about. But yeah, so yeah, first few houses in the neighborhood, we'll bid them. We'll bid them pretty close to our cost. We'll cut quite a bit of our profit out of that one, thinking that when we do a job, we put a yard sign out front, and we'll put a big orange sign that says, fence proudly installed by Ozark Fence with our logo and name on it. And of course, the fence gets signs. And once we complete a fence, we send postcards to the surrounding neighbors. Now, if it's the first house in the neighborhood, we typically don't because the rest of the houses aren't done. But yeah, so we'll use that as a competitive advantage, just that we have the first fence or one of the first few fences in there. We'll typically sell them upgrades at cost. So I'd really like for that fence to be installed with cedar materials on steel posts and be pre-stained. I mean, just top of the line. And we will make that as attractive as we possibly can to that homeowner. We'll hook them up with some financing if they need it. We want that fence just because that fence is going to be the first one in the area and it's a billboard. And we want the customers to have a great experience. So we'll, while we always treat customers really well, we'll roll out the red carpet. We'll spend more time than we probably normally would. And we'll just make sure everything goes exactly right so that customer turns into our brand ambassador for that neighborhood. And then we'll send follow-ups. We'll send follow-up postcards once a year sort of thing. But yeah, so another thing we'll do, you had mentioned high visibility. So another thing we do is we'll run, or we had a business on a main road. And when I say main road, this is, everyone has a series of main roads. This one's like where all of the, I don't want to say high end retail, but a lot of the higher end retail, the malls on this road, a lot of the main, shopping, there a lot of traffic goes through this, and it's in a retail area. This isn't a retail building. It's actually a funeral home right next to a Walgreens, right down the street from the mall. There's some shopping centers right around it that are pretty high end. Anyway, they needed a fence. And so we gave them that fence at cost. And it was a 4-foot cedar on steel post, solid cedar on steel post, cedar materials that were pre-stained walnut. And we just upgraded the thing to the gills and gave them a really attractive price on it, because now we have our sign on this fence, and we put a big orange yard sign out in front of it too, until they got tired of weed eating around it and they pulled it out, which is completely understandable. But now we have our sign on this fence that everyone that drives through the drive-through at Walgreens is waiting on their pharmacy, sits and looks at our orange sign. And then all of the traffic that's going down this major road is going to see our sign. It's a black sign with bright orange letters. You can't miss this thing. So we'll sell projects at our cost, knowing that the profit that we're trading on this, we're not losing it, because we know that we're going to make up additional profits in the future. We view it exactly like you said. We view it as advertising, and so it's probably some of the best advertising we do. I appreciate it, Jackson Fence. I know your name's not Jackson, but anyway, I appreciate you helping. Like, all the questions you guys ask helps build content. We've still got an hour and a half to go into this, because as of right now, I'll have to go through my text real quick, but as of right now, we're not on baby watch. So actually we visited the doctor this morning. So we're getting close. It's still one of those any day conversations, but not today. So we got some time. Ask away. I'd be glad to walk you guys through. If we're talking about video, we're talking about editing. I don't know how much content I can give you guys about what we do here, but I'd certainly be happy to help. Or software we use, Job Nimbus, whatever. Yeah, little beavers aren't really made for rocks. Exactly, mechanical drive. So they've got the shaft that goes from the motor on the tail end. I like how it's kind of it uses leverage also, right? So you've got the motor on the opposite side of your wheeled axles from the drive head. Yeah, it's easy to move around a job site too. I mean, these things are nice. If you're in an area that doesn't have a lot of rock, little beavers are great. It's a great piece of equipment. They're simple. And all you need is a small engine, someone that has small engine experience to maintain these things, and they go and go. So Bobcat was running some pretty nice deals. 0 interest for 5 years. Like, why wouldn't you? It it'll let you put your money elsewhere. I'm gonna take a drink. I'm gonna take a drink real quick, and I always say not sponsored. I'm just a little thirsty. All right, we're gonna give the name a shot. Or is it Carrier? Carrier? I think it's Carrier. Carrier. I don't know. Carpentry. Let me know how to pronounce this thing. But welcome. I appreciate you joining us in this conversation. How you doing, Joe? I'm doing really well. Love your videos. I'm a fence installer in New England. Welcome. You're our first Northeasterner. We typically have a few from obviously New England or Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. So welcome to our first Northeasterner today. We're the number 3 installer in the world of Eastern fence product. Interesting. Number 3 installer in the world. That is incredible. Why don't you? I'm looking at the comments here to see if you already answered this. What is Eastern fence product? I'd love to have a conversation about that because I'm not super familiar with that. The only Eastern in a product, it would be like an Eastern red cedar, but that's typically here in the Midwest, which actually, fun fact, Eastern red cedar isn't a cedar. It's a juniper. Anyway, why don't you let us know what Eastern fence product is? I'd love to have that conversation too. Love your content. Most people take fencing for granted. Yeah, that's the whole point, right? Is I appreciate you picking up on that. I mean, it's the same thing that Fence King, it's the same thing that Mr. Fence are doing out there in the Facebook community. And there's more guys. I don't mean to just limit it to them, but that's what we're trying to do, right? Is we're just trying to bring more content to the fencing community as a whole. Here's the thing, guys. It saddens me, it frustrates me to no end to that we're still at the point where a new fence company averages 3 to 5 years until they're out of business. And in that 3 to 5 years, they just wreak havoc in that market because typically they're not super well versed in their pricing, and so they're still one of the guys that's pricing things by the foot. They're the low price leader, etc. And they just wreak havoc on the market for 3 to 5 years because they don't know any different. And here's the thing. I think everyone takes shots at these guys, but these guys, if you got inside their head, these guys are just trying to do the same thing everyone else does, right? They're trying to provide for their family. They're trying to make their community a safer place by installing fences. They just don't have the requisite background or requisite training to do it in a sustainable fashion. So, I see both ends of this. I see craftsmen, tradesmen, guys that are super great at building fence. They're the number 1 builder in a fence company. They're a rock star, but something happens and they get it in their head that the boss man's making all the money and none of the guys are making any money, and they're going to go out on their own and they're going to make the money for themselves. And they go out and they build fence for a while. But the problem is they're the number 1 fence installer, but they never saw the business side of running this business on procuring the insurance, making sure your insurance is renewed every year, and making sure it's competitively bid in the insurance marketplace, making sure all of your business licenses are in place because I don't know, depending on where you guys are from, it might be different, but here every municipality has their own business license. So we renew, like this time of year, we start looking at the list. I think we renew 14 or 15 business licenses a year for all the little communities that are all around us because each one of them want their $100, $125 to get a business permit. So you got to keep that up. You got to keep relationships with your suppliers so that they let you know when there's price increases coming down the line. But sometimes they don't. The supplier we use, and I won't say which one. I don't want to put them on blast, but they're usually pretty good about giving us a heads up that price increases are coming, and others have. But this particular one has gotten to where, when the truck shows up is when, we have a credit card on file, and they just run our card when they send the truck. The problem is they don't let us know when there's a price increase. So last week we found out the price of colored chain link fittings went up about 32%. And we found that out after our card had been run, and we already had it on our lot. So surprise, it's staying on top of that, right? So I don't know where I was going in that rabbit hole, but I know where I was going is that we're trying to help these guys and other fence guys in general, not just the new guys, but I want to help them succeed. I want if we could have, and I know Dan and Sean are in the same mindset, that where if we can have an impact on one fence guy, where we were able to make the difference from being 3 to 5 years to 20 years and 25. If we're talking 3 to 5 years to generational, that makes all of this worth it. All day, every day. That absolutely makes this worth it. So yeah. Whoa. So this is a first. Carrier, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. That is awesome. Guys, let's give them a hand. That's our very first super sticker. I appreciate that a lot. That is unreal. Let me scoot over. So I'm gonna scoot over to the YouTube stream of this, because like I said before, we use a program that streams all this, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anything else. So this just happened last week, where they opened up smaller channels, which ours is a smaller channel. They just opened up smaller channels to be eligible for exactly what we just saw happen. The super stickers, the super chat. I want to make sure I'm not missing super chats too, because those are a thing. And I want to make sure I don't miss them. Give me just a second. I have to confirm to YouTube that this stream is not made for kids. If there's any kids out there building fence, that'd be something crazy, wouldn't it? All right. Now we're on board. Got it all pulled up. Thank you, Carrier. Thank you. Appreciate you a lot. That means a lot that you're helping support the channel. All right. So now I'm going to go back up. I saw that pop up, so I wanted to give that immediate recognition. Let me kind of catch up a little bit. Okay, it's Carrier. I'm sorry. Just has well, now listen. The E's not dumb. It's just silent, right? Has a silent Carrier. All right. New England fencing is rough. So much ledge. Yeah. Here's the funny thing, guys, is I say this all the time. I was like, all the fence guys, and this isn't just fence. You see this in almost every industry. Everyone thinks that their situation is unique to their industry, right? It's, well, I understand, whatever the subject is. I understand that works for you, but I'm different. My customers are different. My area is different. Ledge rock is no joke, though. We get ledge rock here. So when you get down into the lakes area, we don't sit on ledge here in the Springfield market, but when you get south, if anyone that's familiar with the area, down in the lakes area, Branson, Missouri, that's where we get into ledge rock there. It is absolutely no joke. Sell for 4 different Lowe's. Congratulations. That's quite the accomplishment. Here's what I've found about Lowe's. They pay differently per region. So here, and it probably depends on the size of the company, the overhead, and all that. But in our area, we've had a couple conversations with Lowe's. Usually our pro services rep that will call up and say, "Hey, have you ever thought about talking to the installed services rep, because we could really use a professional fence guy?" So, okay, sure. I mean, that's fine. I'll have a conversation with anybody. But their paying rate is less than our cost of labor. So that doesn't make any sense at all. And you still, the way our Lowe's works is you still have to go meet with the client. Now, the odd thing is it's sold prior to the handoff, but after the handoff, you have to go meet with the client to verify measurements. And then you tell Lowe's what materials you basically order the materials from Lowe's, pick them up, go install the fence, but you also do any follow-up care with the client as well for less than the cost of our labor. So in our situation, it doesn't work. But when I talk to other guys, such as Carrier, Lowe's in different regions pay significantly better. So what works in some areas might not work for others. It would be nice if they paid enough to where we could go do it. Right now, one of the Lowe's hires a handyman to install the fence, and the other one hires a carpenter, a guy that installs their cabinets, also installs their fence. So, Zach says here in Spring, Texas, Little Beaver would probably work well, mainly just hard clay and roots. Yeah, so it probably would. Hard clay, I mean, it would take longer, but as long as the problem with the Little Beavers is, as Sean said, they're a mechanical drive, they're not a hydraulic drive. So it's the constantly hitting that hard, immovable object over and over and over wears those things out, like when you're hitting rocks, such as Carrier said with the ledge rock. But yeah, hard clay shouldn't be a problem. Roots typically aren't a problem either. It probably would work well. So here's the thing with Little Beavers, Zach. You could probably find a rental house that rents those out. The rental houses here, all of them have at least two of these things sitting on their lot. That's what I like to do before I buy anything. I'll rent one for a week and I'll give it to a crew and I'll let them just use it all week long, how they would typically use it, and then we'll go return it. And every Friday afternoon, we have a production meeting, and I'll talk to the crew chief and I'll just say, hey, what do you think of it? Do you want to use it again? I mean, how much time did it save you? How much efficiency did it give us? Is that efficiency? Does it make it worth buying this thing? Yeah. So rent one for a week, 2 weeks, and try it before you buy it, sort of thing. Okay, so Carrier's following up with he's the number 3 dealer in the world for Eastern Fence products. It's a brand originating from New York. They make chain link vinyl cedar pickets. We've been using them for 6 years. They make great products. That's very interesting. So let me get back up here. Let's see. Yep, Eastern Fence product. We're the number 3 installer in the world. That's incredible. I'm humbled that you're here, that you're hanging out with us. That's very awesome. I saw that I had missed a question. I got so excited with the super sticker. I got a little excited there. I skipped over a question where I just saw it. There it is. Martin F. Baby says, what is the lowest temperature you're comfortable using concrete for your post? We haven't found that. We haven't found a temperature we're not comfortable using concrete, and here's why. So like today, now granted our guys didn't work today. The office and production was closed today, but right now it's 21, has a wind chill of 9, which is starting to get dangerous temperatures for having our guys out in this weather. So that's always a consideration. But if we're installing concrete today, or we're installing posts with concrete today, we'd likely be adding calcium chloride to the water. That made that warm. The chemical reaction warms that water up quite a bit. Now the problem is it also sets that concrete faster. That science lesson here, exothermic reaction. Is that right? Sounds right. The chemical reaction is heating the water and it speeds up how quickly that concrete sets. So I haven't found a temperature that we haven't set concrete at. It would more be a temperature that I think is dangerous for our guys to be out for a prolonged period of time. Like today where it's 9 degrees wind chill, we're probably, we're probably talking about warm up breaks in the truck every half hour, that sort of thing. We typically keep a truck, and when temperatures get dangerously low, the truck stays idling at all times. It stays on and warm. And a lot of guys say that's excessive and that's wasteful. Hear me out. Is that truck also stays warm. So if his fingers start tingling, if his face feels numb, if his toes start tingling or whatever, he has a warm space that he can egress to and try to get warmth back into his fingers, into his face, into his toes before it starts getting, to where like a critical level where we're talking about health safety, right? Anyway, and typically when it gets really crazy for prolonged periods of time, typically if there's high winds, we'll have warm up breaks every hour. It starts at every hour, 5 to 10 minutes every hour. And then if it's prolonged where it's really crazy, it's 5 or 10 minutes every half hour. And production suffers for sure, but I'd rather production suffer than have that health safety conversation. All right. Let me find our way back down into this some more. Check that out. Jesse James Morales is from North Houston, really close to Spring, Texas. So you guys are practically neighbors. Another Texas fellow. I think that makes 4 Texas folks with us today. All right, so we don't charge by the foot. Here's how it goes. We're going to do another screen share here, guys. Where let me get this teed up and ready to go. Make sure it's ready for you. Gonna back up, get back to that estimate. So since I'm running this live stream and I'm trying to Job Nimbus can be kind of resource intensive. It's running a little bit slower. Let me find. So we did that black chain link, but that was one of those That was what a bid where I make up bids and have my team figure out what the mistakes are. Let's see if this is more of a real world one. Yep. Okay. Let me switch you guys over. Give you guys a look at it. There it is. So this is inside this is just a test bid. For those of you that weren't here for the first explanation, these are not real prices. These are fake prices. This is not what I charge. This is not what you should charge. This is not a conversation about pricing. This is educational only as to how to bid projects. That being said, this is an example of one of our estimates. So, this one is for 200 feet of 4-foot chain link. So, and actually this could be, 48 inch, 11 and a half. That's the size that we stock. So if this was a non-stock item, the last example was a 5-foot black coated. So it'd be a non-stock item. We would round up to the next nearest unit of measurement, the nearest roll, sticker rail, that sort of thing. So if this was like 185 feet or something non-stock, we would roll that up to 200, but irregardless. So in this example, it shows 200 feet of wire, 210 foot of rail, because the top rail comes in 21-foot sticks. Four terminal posts, 19 line posts, etc. and onward. You got all your dome tops, loop tops, tension bands, brace bands, band bolts, rail ends, tension bars, tie wires, concrete. You got your fence labor. Here's one thing too: is we charge for installation equipment. So this is, and actually this kind of explains it. It's a truck, trailer, digging equipment, installation tools. We ran the cost of operating our equipment out over the course of a year, and in this example, it came up to 75 cents a foot. This also, so when we're figuring up these numbers, we're trying to figure out what it cost us to operate this business, right? What does it cost for maintaining the equipment? For every piece of equipment has a lifespan. So how much is it going to cost to replace that equipment after X amount of hours? How much does it cost to maintain it in the meantime? How much are consumables? So like on your auger has teeth. So how many holes do those teeth typically last for, and all that? For this example, it costs us 75 cents per foot of fence built to operate the equipment. The truck, trailer, the powered equipment, the non-powered equipment. Diggers have, hand diggers have a lifespan. Rock bars have a lifespan, that sort of thing. And then we've got every project has a setup labor, which I just screwed that up. So you gotta be careful of scrolling here because you can also scroll right past this. But you can affect that number by scrolling. So we also have setup labor. $250 to set up for a project. And because we found that, and that's just for this example, not real numbers, but in this example, it costs this business $250 to set up for the project, to roll out all the equipment, to prepare the project, to do the layouts and everything. Because oftentimes the prep costs the company the same or a similar amount for small projects to large projects. So this is an attempt to recoup that cost, even if it's a small project or if it's a large project. And then we've got our gates. We've got gate frames. Again, that each gate's going to have a couple posts. It's going to have gate hardware. The posts are going to have dome tops on them. They're going to have each post is going to have a hookup. So you're going to have tension bands. In this example, you've got your tension bands, brace bands, band bolts. In this example, what I was going to say is this gate is in the middle of a line. So you're going to have 6 tension bands, right? 3 on either side. If this gate were at the end, which we don't typically like to do, this would be a 3. You got your rail ends, tension bars. You got concrete for your posts. We use a bag and a half per gate post, and these are 80-pound bags of sackcrete. So we're going to need three additional bags of concrete. And then you have your gate installation labor. Same thing with single gates. Yep. And if this example project were to have removal, that would be down here at the bottom. So this is how we priced out the project. So so the whole project isn't priced by the foot. Now, I understand that some of these units are by the foot, right? So fence labor is by the foot. We know how much a fence crew is capable of building in a week. How many feet and then we take our total labor cost and divide that number by that many feet, and that gets us to a rough number, rough price per foot for labor. Same thing with equipment. Equipment's charged by the foot. It gets us close. But the project as a whole is not priced on the per the foot because, in the example of like line posts, depending on how much footage, you might need an extra line post. And if you're pricing by the foot, does that per foot price include that extra line post that also needs a loop top? And now it's going to require additional tie wires. It just kind of goes on and on. But this is the example of how we would bid a project per the project rather than per the foot. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. Hope I explained that right. If not, feel free to ask follow-up questions. We've still got an hour here. So, yeah. So Zach and Jesse are talking about the pains and rewards of fencing around North Houston. Jesse James Morales is just starting out. So here's the thing. So this, do I call you Jesse or do I call you Jesse James? I kind of want to call you Jesse James, but if you're just Jesse, I'd like to call you Jesse as well. But for that, right now, I'll call you Jesse James. You're exactly the person that I am creating this content for. So you're just starting out. You likely have experience with another fence company, but now you've decided to start out on your own. That's very common right now because we're in the middle of a really good economy where financing is relatively inexpensive and money is fairly free flowing. So that's going to happen. And so what I want, my goal, Jesse James, is to give you the most content possible and to set you up for success and hopefully help you avoid pitfalls that some of the rest of us that have been around for a while have found ourselves in and had to claw ourselves out of. If I can help you avoid those pitfalls, that's what I'm here for. So ask away. No question's a dumb question, right? No question's a silly. No question's an easy question. Does not matter. Ask away. You're absolutely the type of person I want to talk to, the new fencing contractor. Build your tool set as you grow. Don't go crazy once you have some money. Yeah, 100%, Zach. Yeah, I think you see guys do this too, right? Is they go buy brand new top of the line equipment. Now, when we bought these Dingos, we bought them, 3-4 years ago. So this is, we're a company that's been around at that point. We'd been around 60 years, right? Could we have afforded to go buy brand new equipment? Yeah, sure, probably. But I wasn't sure that was a piece of equipment that was right for us. We'd rented them, we trialed them, and we knew like that's kind of the direction we wanted to head. But I didn't know how they worked out in our business model, right? I didn't know if that was an isolated incident, that 1 week that we rented it, if that was the 1 week where we actually needed it, and the rest of the time it's going to sit on the trailer. So we bought used. We bought relatively inexpensive as compared to the price of new ones. And I think that, Zach, I think your advice is spot on. That slowly build the tools that you need, and they're not necessarily always going to be new. I would recommend not buying new tools right off the bat because you don't know exactly what tools you're going to incorporate into your system. Just because they work for someone else does not mean they're going to work for you. Dr. Strange, I love that name. If you have to build a fence and your neighbor doesn't want to split the cost, what do you do? The Fencer's Kobayashi Maru. Not super familiar with that phrase, but so what would you do? Even you would set the fence inside your property line. We set, and this is probably going to vary by state or region, that sort of thing. But for us in the state of Missouri, 6 inches is sufficient to show ownership. 6 inches inset is sufficient, like I said, in the courts to show that particular homeowner owns that fence. So if the two neighbors aren't going in to split the cost, we always step in 6 inches inside the property line. That way there's never a conversation on who actually owns that fence. The problem with it being on a property line, again, in the state of Missouri, is if the fence is installed on a property line, it becomes commonly owned property between the two neighbors. So the other neighbor has half a say in anything you do with that fence. technically and legally speaking. So, he could paint his side of the fence bright pink. And if it's on the property line, if it's shared ownership of that property, of that fence, he's got every right to do that. If that fence stays 6 inches on your side of the property, that whole entire fence is yours. The color of the fence, any accessories that are attached to the fence, birdhouses, etc., that conversation rests with you in the state of Missouri. I want to say that because it varies state by state and region by region. But my best advice would be you bring the fence in, however far your state recognizes, however far is required for your state to recognize it as solely owned property. Yeah. We still use a per section cost for labor and equipment. As far as expenses go, we use a percentage average for known cost. Make sure we're covering all of the cost. Again, this is just 100%. So, and we should probably do that, honestly, Sean. The more I hear you talk about this, the per section makes a lot of sense. Especially, and when you say section, I mean it that applies to whatever: wood, chain link, aluminum, steel, vinyl, etc. We should really look at breaking our labor and equipment costs down by section. I agree. Jimbo, you're very welcome. I'm always happy to help however we can. All right, Jesse James, I like that a lot. It's a hard no. That's a pretty hard no. So there should be language filters on the channel, and that would absolutely be one of the triggers. Yeah, so we actually just did this today. So we did $500 per employee as a bonus. That's on top of any monthly bonuses, performance bonuses that they already get. So we did $500 a person for Christmas bonus. And actually, I'm following my sword a little bit here. I missed the direct deposit cutoff for bonuses so that it's not actually going to hit until next week. So that was my fault, and I'm going to own that on Monday morning when I talk to the staff that there is a bonus coming on. I think with the holiday cutoff, I think it's coming on Tuesday. So, but $500. It just depends on the year, right? When we were in the middle of the housing crisis bubble and all that, it was $100, right? So, or if we've had a particularly good year, we've done up to $1,000. It's kind of a sliding scale depending on how the business did that year. And we also, so here's the thing with bonuses too. I would rather, on the year that we did $1,000 bonuses, that next year we actually did pretty substantial raises. I would rather, if I have enough money to give everyone $1,000, I have enough money to give them a raise for the year. I would rather pay that employee, that team member, a higher wage than just give them a lump sum at the end of the year. I think that's more usable. One person's perspective on that. Said CEO. Bright pink is an example. I don't know of like bright pink exterior paint. I'm sure it's out there. Somebody could do it. You're very welcome, Zach. I'll see you next time. Have a Merry Christmas to you too. All right, Jimbo with a smiley face. All right, so we still have a little bit of time. We still have an hour left. So I'm up for talking about whatever you guys want to talk about. Be sure to ask whatever questions you've got, and it can literally be anything. It could be video editing. It could be video production. We've talked about that a little bit so far. We've talked a little bit about estimating, how we estimate per project rather than by per foot. We talk about YouTube content. So let's do this. I know you guys, so right now the chat and the video, there's about a 30-second delay. So I'm seeing real-time chat, but the video takes about 30 seconds for me to say this, get decoded, go through the internet, come back down to you. So I'll give this about a 30-second delay. One question I get a lot privately is how much money a YouTube channel makes. So that's a piece of content we're going to shoot We're gonna shoot later on. I'll probably actually shoot the video first part of January, so we can do a entire year's an accurate look at 2020. But if you guys want to dive into it, we certainly can do that. How much money has the channel made so far? It might surprise you. Some people think that the YouTube channel doesn't make anything. It's definitely more than zero. Some people think the channel makes an exorbitant amount of money, and they're surprised to hear that it doesn't make as much as they thought. So I'm certainly up for talking about that. Guys, I'm an open book. I really am. So let's do this. Let me check, make sure everything's clicking right along. I'm going to check on the YouTube stream side of things. Look at our analytics here. Make sure stream health looks good. Make sure I'm not missing any questions here. All right. Let's go into it. Let's talk about YouTube revenue, because this is something I was thinking about today. This is what I've been working on today, is kind of creating this idea on what we're going to talk about on future videos. So that's like when I have down days, like the office was technically closed today, but I worked today just because the office is quiet, and no one needs just a minute. That always turns into 15, 20, 30 minutes. I can get stuff done a little bit more efficiently on days where the office is technically closed. So that's always nice. And I can kind of move at my own pace too. So let's get into the analytics of this page. So I'm in YouTube's content creator page right now, which this might be interesting for you guys. I don't know. I'll kind of show you guys a little bit of behind the scenes. So this is an interesting question. Before we get into that, Bo Butler says, what have you found to be the best way to dispose of old fences? Probably depends on the type of fence. Here in our neck of the woods, we see predominantly chain link and wood fence. I guess the answer can also apply to like an ornamental iron or aluminum. But chain link, ornamental steel, and aluminum, it all goes straight to the scrap. Because usually by the time we're replacing the fence, it's at its end of life, right? There's not a lot of additional life left in that particular product. So, yeah. So we'll take that straight to the scrap, get a little bit of value out of it. There's never a ton of value there, but it beats paying to dispose of it. With the wood fence, typically we leave the wood fence out in front of our shop, like right on the side of the road, like not the right of way, but our part of the property that's nearest to the road. We leave it stacked up there for anyone to come get. So typically we've got crafters, whether they're building birdhouses or knickknacks or whatever, crafty type projects. Those are predominantly where a lot of those materials go off to. We have some folks that come by that, we've got some like a handyman that come by to pick through the pickets to find the good ones, so that if they're repairing a fence that is, an established fence, it's a gray fence. They don't necessarily, the customers don't necessarily want to replace those pickets with a brand new looking picket. They'd prefer a picket that's gray, and that might not be the same shade of gray, but a picket that's gray to go with that fence. So we see those guys picking it up, and then some folks take it to try to build a new fence out of it. Not a new fence, obviously, but new to them fence. There's typically a reason that fence is getting pulled out, though. So, yeah, those are the three. So we put it out in front of the office, and it's free for whoever wants to come get it. And it's crazy. So once you start doing this, as long as you have space and all that, once you start doing this, people just drive by looking for it. And so a lot of times we had some old material that the guys brought back, some tear out that the guys brought back yesterday. And over half of it was gone before they finished unloading the truck. The other half of the trailer was gone, before the end of the day. It's usually gone really quickly. And sometimes, sometimes we'll have the trailer pulled up to the side. We'll be unloading it, and people will pull up, say, "Hey, instead of unloading it onto the ground, you just unload it onto my trailer," and we'll do that too. So, free of charge. That way we try to repurpose it as much as possible. Sometimes this happens. Sometimes people ask us if they can take it to burn. The only problem is, so a lot of this is treated pine. That's predominantly what we see here is treated pine. there's still treatment left in it, and it might be trace amounts, and it might not be, there might not be that much, but man, I would hate to burn that in any sort of enclosed environment or where people would be inhaling it. Even in like a bonfire situation, I don't know how comfortable I would be being around, a treated pine fences getting burned. If it's cedar, then absolutely, it's all for the taking as far as burning that goes. But treated pine, I would not want to be around it when somebody's burning it, especially not like if we're talking about a wood stove, like in a house or something. Absolutely not. All right, let's dig into the YouTube channel. Let's just take you a behind the scenes tour of the channel. So this is, I guess I should probably switch you guys over to screen share. There we go. So this is the, Joe Everest YouTube channel. So if you guys have seen it, this is this week's video up where I did a review of April Wilkerson's content. Guys, she puts out some really good content. Like I hadn't heard of her I hadn't heard of her until Jeremy had said that what I told Jeremy was I want to find some positive some content that I can positively review. You see some channels that do reaction videos or review videos that are just like, what I'm talking about. The ones that are just completely negative. They're there for clickbait, or they're there for the shock value of what they say about this person or whatever the subject is. I don't want to be about that. I don't want this channel to become even stray down that road. So I told Jeremy, I was like, I want to do positive reviews. I want to share someone's great content with my crowd and with the folks that watch the channel. And so he brought back, he's like, hey, have you ever heard of April Wilkerson? I said, I haven't. He's like, you need to watch her stuff immediately. Like, she's really good at what she does. And she did a 3-part series where she replaced some of her fence. So he pulled up her content, and I just watched it and then reacted as I watched it, kind of like off the cuff type stuff. So this is her video there where we did that, and it's actually performing really well. So today's Thursday. So it went up yesterday morning, 10 o'clock Central yesterday morning. So it's been up, so about 30 hours or so. I guess I could have looked right there. 1 day, 6 hours. So we've had 750 people watch it. Now, one thing YouTube really likes to look at here is the impression click-through rate. So 6.9, 7%, call it. So this is how many people see it on their home screen and then click on it. Typically, 6 to 10% seems like is a pretty good range. They also look at average view duration. So this video, I'd have to look at it. I think this video is about 8 minutes, 8 or 9 minutes long. So this is about right. So it says our typical range is 249 through basically 3 to 4 minutes. So this is above average there. Let me click back. I'm going to be clicking back and forth because I'll watch your guys' comments too as we go through this. But all right, so there's that, and then it shows like some recent published videos. So this is actually what we're doing right now. And then, or actually, no, this was last week's video. So it shows me that we had 311 views, 6 comments, 17 thumbs up. So thumbs up are a huge thing. If you guys are watching this, if you could give it a thumbs up, it absolutely helps because it tells YouTube that I'm producing good content. So that's kind of right in line, right? So this second from the last one was a weekly Ask Me Anything live. So it had 309 views, 9 comments, 17 thumbs up. And then we had the video, the What is the AFA? So so that's kind of shows our recent published videos. Down here, we have our latest posts. So this is the one, Jeremy actually put this up for me on the 22nd. So a couple days. So what was that? Tuesday? Yep. Just kind of interacting with you guys. I got a couple comments there. And then shows me some recent subscribers. So George Stamatkis, T Ranger, and Wayne Meter are the 3 most recent subscribers. And it shows me some comments here. Shows me the 3 latest comments. Now, I'll show you guys here in a minute where all the comments stay. Then it gives me the channel analytics. So last 28 days, we've gained 846 subscribers. So that's always nice. Now, here's the thing. So it's showing me views are down, watch time's down, revenue's down. So this number, $819, that's our monthly revenue, what what the channel brought in the last 28 days. Some people don't think the channel brings in much, and so that's kind of a surprisingly high number. But some people think it brings in quite a bit more, and so that's a little bit surprising. Now, here's one thing it shows. So this is top line revenue. So if we're talking to business guys, that's top line revenue before expenses. Right now, our expenses to produce this channel are about $1,200 a month. Actually, so $1,500 a month when you consider what this space costs to lease. So we're making about half of that back in revenue. Yeah. You got YouTube news. It's always, this is timely. So managing inappropriate comments, such as someone asked if they could use the N word, which is a hard no. So we probably have that tool set up, I would bet. Yeah. So let me switch back over, see if there's any comments. Nope. All right. So if you guys have comments as I'm going through this, let me know and I'll get back to the channel. All right. So let's look at, where were we going with this? Oh, we're going with revenue. Let's look at analytics. So this tells me how the channel's doing, how the video content's doing. So in the last 28 days. So here's where I kind of show people a little bit of like what's behind how much money comes in, right? So $819.83 in the last 28 days, but that's for 82,000 views. We've had 5.5 thousand hours. Why do they say it that way? 5,500 hours. 846 subscribers. Now, each one of these we can click on to see, it looks like in general, the watch time is going up, which is what we're looking for. The subscribers are always kind of up and down. Depends on what YouTube decides to push content wise. And then of course the revenue. So it shows me revenue like on a daily basis where that's at, it looks like, I don't know, $20, $30 a day is kind of what we're averaging here. Now, when we zoom this out, so every now and then YouTube latches onto a video and just promotes it like crazy, which was this video apparently, which that makes sense. Okay, so that was a 10K giveaway, which actually, if you guys haven't signed up for the 10K giveaway, I've got that link in the description below. I'm giving that out. So December 31st is the cutoff for the 10K giveaway. Midnight of the 31st, midnight between the 31st and the 1st is the cutoff. And then that Thursday during this Ask Me Anything live, we'll be doing a drawing. We'll be doing the live drawing for the winners of the 10K giveaway. Yeah. So this is when that went out. So it let's back out to views. So it showed that. So right now on average, so 3,000 or 4,000 people a day. And those are kind of lower. So it's around Christmas. So everyone always says around Christmas, the channel views get a little bit lower, but we'll say 2,500 to 3,000 views a day. It's kind of average. Now, on this particular day, they showed it to 35,000 people. So, 10 times plus the average viewership, which means our watch time spiked. So our watch time average was, 250, 300 a day. We had almost 1,800. So, yeah, subscribers, and we saw subscribers spike from that, and then we saw a revenue spike. So if we're talking about the last 90 days, the channel brought in $4,000. Let's zoom this out to the year. You guys will have a kind of a conversation on this. So I'd been producing content, obviously. Let's see when it says the first video was uploaded. So here's the very first video, November 11th, 2019. We should have done a video, the 1 year anniversary of the channel. But but this is when the channel was brand new, right? So this is very first video. In 2019, we had 348 views for the whole year. Now, granted, we only had about a month and a half of the year there, but we had 348 views. We had about 6 hours of view time, and we gained 4 subscribers. Then we launched into 2020. So again, this is the channel is growing. So as we're looking at revenue, the channel wasn't monetized yet. We're still putting out content. We're putting out, fence post spacing explained, how to build a fence, how deep. We talk about how deep the fence post should be set. We talked about home advisor lawsuit, how to build a fence on uneven ground, which actually we're going to do a follow up to that later. And then we're putting out content pretty regularly. but we weren't monetized because we hadn't gotten to the monetization threshold, which I believe is 1,000 subscribers and 10,000 views. You have to double check me on that. Google that real quick. But there's a base threshold on, smaller channels can't get monetized until they reach this threshold. And I want to say it's 1,000 subscribers and 10,000 views. But then all of a sudden we hit a spike. So this was so there it is. So the one that did it for us was the fence foam. Does fence post foam really work? Say that a few times fast. So that video is the one that boosted us into monetization because the views just went crazy. It took YouTube a little while to figure that out. So where is it? So April 29th is when we posted that video, and then it took until May 17th. So, a few weeks of YouTube looking at analytics to show that. And when they did, the views just went crazy. This is when we saw that 44,000 views in one day. Friday, May 29th was the most views we've ever gotten ever on the channel. And it was a post-phone video. And so that broke the threshold on monetization. So we got above 1,000 subscribers and we got above 10,000 views. And so then that's when we launched into monetization. And so on that particular day, we made, if I can get the cursor correct here, $194. And that's actually probably, was that the most we've ever made? Nope. So October 31st, we made $216. But you see these little peaks, right? And so you see it in views. It's like almost every 30 days. So August 31st, July 11th, so maybe more than 30 days. But May, end of May, and then this one was July, August, nothing September, October. Yeah, October 31st, we had a spike there, and then it comes back down. And so that's kind of where the revenue, you see revenue spikes there as well, because revenue follows views. Let me switch back over, see if there's any comments here. All right. So when we look over revenue, what number we're looking for here is RPM. So that's actually how much this channel makes per 1,000 views. So for every 1,000 views, we make $5.65. Now, so we actually make $12 per 1,000, but YouTube gets their cut. Right. They get a pretty hefty percentage of that for putting the content creator, which is this channel, and the subscribers together. So, we actually make about $12.14 per 1,000. But then YouTube takes their cut and it goes back down to $5.65 per 1,000. So I wanted to share that because it kind of puts, if we look at what we made for the year, the channel made $10,400. But it costs significantly more than that to, put the content together. But anyway, I just thought this was the hardest part of the channel, right? Is going through this zero. I mean, you're creating content and you're really not seeing much feedback at all, especially when we're looking at, reach. Reach is how many people saw your content each and every day. That's a struggle. But then once you hit that video, for us, it was the post foam. We figured out that, and we shot it not knowing it was going to be a hit. And so we found that one video and then it was kind of off to the races, impression click-throughs. So they're really spotty. And then all of a sudden they started panning out once people started getting familiar with the channel and kind of knowing what we're up to here. And of course, these views are following the YouTube algorithm on when they like to show our content. So they also tell you where the content views come from. Most of them are from the browse feature, some suggested videos, some YouTube search. There's some external sources. So Facebook is big for us because that's probably where you guys found the channel. Is I shared it out to some Facebook pages and folks joined the channel from there. Also, Google search is almost 30%. So Google owns YouTube. That's why when you enter a search term in Google, Google likes to show you 3 to 4 YouTube videos ahead of the rest of the search results. So, and then it tells you like playlist, YouTube search term. So how to build a fence is a pretty good search term. Now, when I say pretty good, it's 3%, right? So it's not like a huge driver of traffic, but it's there. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to do a video on this probably in January. I'd like for 2020 to close out so that we can do a wonder what that is. Total number of viewers is only available for periods of up to 9 days. Okay. Well, so anyway, we're going to do a video in January so that I can just switch this to 2020 and it'll tell us, we'll have an accurate year total on how much money a YouTube channel makes. So right now, technically the channel has brought in 10,400, but we're still not above break even yet on the channel itself. But yeah, hopefully that was a good behind the scenes tour for you guys. Of course, if you see anything there that piques your interest, let me know, and we can certainly go back to it. Let's catch up on some of the comments. Angry Patriots with us. Welcome from East Tennessee. So now we've got a West Tennessee and an East Tennessee. Love it. Thank you for joining us. Merry Christmas if you celebrate the holiday. All right. So here's the thing. So we shot a video Tuesday, which means I had to look at the production schedule or calendar, but I think that means it'll come out on this channel next month. We demoed it. So here's what we did. We did 6 posts, 2 posts in concrete, 2 posts in Sika Pro Select, which is the foam product that we did the first video on. And then we did 2 posts with a different product. And I don't want to ruin surprises here, so I won't get too deep into it. The Sika now this was a day. All right, let's talk about the first video. Sika failed in the first video pretty majorly. After it says I'd have to get the package out to look at it. I don't have one here, but it says it cures in like up to 5 minutes. But then it says, not to build on. It's not fully cured and ready to build on for 2 hours. Well, we shot this video throughout the day, and then we were out of time for the day. So we let it sit overnight. Actually, no, that was on a Friday we filmed that. So we used to film this content on Fridays. Now we film it on Tuesday. But anyway, so we filmed on a Friday, and we're out of time. So we let it sit over the weekend. We came back on Monday, and those posts were just sloppy. I mean, they wobbled like they were not secure at all. Now we dug them with an 8-inch auger because it calls for an 8-inch hole that's 24-inch deep. Or actually, I think it said up to 30 inches deep, which makes sense because those are ASTM standards. We dug it with an 8-inch auger, 24-inch deep. That's typical for our area for residential fence. And it didn't fill the hole, and we used a round steel post, a 2.5-inch, ours are 2.5-inch CS40. And then on the other post, we used a Postmaster Plus post, and it did not adhere to the post at all, even though on the packaging it said it's used for wood, steel, and vinyl posts. Didn't adhere to it at all. It also shrank. In the video, I used the term constricted, and that brought a lot of grammatical professionals out to let me know that constrict was not the correct term, but it shrank, right? It got smaller. It was smaller than it was when I left it. So it actually shrunk in the hole. The post was fairly firm when I left it. It wobbled. It wobbled beyond what I was I wouldn't have built fence on it. But it was fairly secure. 2 days later, so on Monday, 3 days later, whatever, it was super sloppy. You probably could have pulled it out by hand. It was that loose. And so I called it a fail. I mean, I called it how I saw it. It failed. I wouldn't have built fence on it the first day, much less at this point. And there are a variety of comments. So a lot of people, according to my comments, a lot of people use it and a lot of people like it. The There were some comments that wasn't mixed correctly, even though in the video you can see that I mixed it per the instructions and per the demonstration on Sika's YouTube page. I watched that video first just so I knew exactly what to do as I was doing it. I didn't want to look like somebody that didn't know what they were doing. So I followed the instructions and I followed the video, and it just didn't perform. And then some of the comments were, it was outside the ideal parameters, which was, so Sika also reached out with that feedback, was that it appeared that the conditions were not ideal. The temperature, it was cooler. So I remember it was earlier this spring. It was cool. It had rained the day before, and I commented in the video, at least in the B-roll, I don't know if it made the final video, it had been misting on and off that day. So they said it needs to be dry, and it needs to be between 50 and 90 degrees or something like that, Fahrenheit. Which my feedback for that was, then how are you going to install? So you're telling me you can only use this product in ideal conditions. So we're absolutely not going to use that for, a fence installing contractor would absolutely not use that, because if you only had a tool that you could use in the best day, how often would you use it? Right. And so my point of the whole video was I installed those posts in a way that my guys would install, and how on a typical day in the spring, it's cold and damp. It rains and we get mist through the day. It just happens. Yeah. And another piece of feedback I got in the comments was that it wasn't properly braced. I had one of my guys there holding it, with the level. Here's another fact for you guys is, so I used the term level rather than the term plumb. And it's a term that we use, right? So we level a post. The feedback was, again, the grammar professionals came out in force to inform me that the correct term is plumb, which is true. It absolutely is. My point being, everyone understood the term, right? I think everyone understood what I was saying, but true. The correct term is plumb. Anyway, so in this video, the video that we shot Tuesday, it was 61 degrees out. It had been warm for the last 4 or 5 days. It hadn't rained in about 2 weeks. This weather was about as ideal as you could get. I mean, especially being from Missouri. It was best case scenario in every sense. So yeah, we did 2-post concrete. We did 2-post Sika. We did 2 posts in a different product. And yeah, I'll give you guys a little bit of insight, for the fence fam. The Sika failed again. It failed in new and unique ways. It didn't fail in the same ways that the first video showed. Yeah, failed in new and exciting ways. So, my professional opinion as a guy that's used it a few times. Now, have I done 100 holes with it? No. Have we used it, for prolonged periods of time? No. But I ensured that the temperature was about as ideal as it gets. It hadn't rained in a while. Oh, one comment was maybe the product wasn't stored correctly, or maybe it was out of date. So I bought the product that day from a local home improvement store. My assumption being that the home improvement store stores it correctly. I bought it in a way that a DIY, someone performing a DIY project would go and buy it, right? So it still failed in, like I said, new and exciting ways. So my opinion would be the Sika product. I wouldn't use the term gimmick. I mean, there's a lot of people in the comments that swore they used it and it worked super well for them. Actually, there's a few guys on YouTube after I did that video. There's a few more channels that also did a similar video, and it worked for them. So now they were using wood post. So maybe it's not to be used for steel post. And if that's the case, they should take steel post off of the front cover says use for it, and like the exact words or something to the effect of, use this for all types of post, wood, steel. It calls out steel specifically, and vinyl post. So maybe it has an adhesion problem with steel post. Fine. Say that. Say it's not for use with steel, but used for wood post only. That's fine. They might have used smaller holes or smaller augers too. They might have been smaller diameter holes. There's other people that have used it and it's worked well for them, including channels here on YouTube. And so anyway, so now we've used used it for 4 holes, 4 posts. They were all steel posts. So this time, the video we did this time was all Postmaster post. Because what I'm doing is I'm setting this up for like recurring videos. So, the next segment might be, so one of the videos that's done well but had a lot of comments asking for further videos was how we build posts on uneven ground, right? So rather than stair stepping, we build it 2 grade. So we don't use pre-built panels. In general, in our market, in our local region, no one uses the pre-built panels. Everyone builds on site because the terrain can vary pretty drastically. Now, that being said, I've seen guys use panels, use pre-built panels that also deal with terrain. So I'm not saying it can't be done, but in our area, it's not. Anyway, I'm setting this up to where we can film future videos. So to the original question, this Sitka Pro Select is not a product I would use. And we'll leave it at that. There's other people that have used it and that have success with it. So your experience might vary. I won't be using it for my business. All right. So Bo asks, how do you handle weather delays with customers when you're booked out months? Contact everyone and push back or try and catch up over weekends? Yeah. So we try and catch up as much as possible. So what works for us now? So first let's talk about, we've got 3 crews. 1 crew can split into 4 crews. So I say that our commercial crew is a subcontract crew. It's a family of fence guys that, similar to us, they're 3rd generation. So the sons are my age and their dad's my dad's age. And sometimes their grandpa comes out and helps them build fence. They do pretty much all our commercial stuff and they take overflow residential. So they can split off. They can bring some cousins on and split off into 2 3 to 4 man crews. So we have 3 to 4 crews that we like to keep busy pretty consistently, because this answer varies depending on what size of the company is too, right? Our schedule is we set posts on Mondays and Tuesdays. We finish the projects on Thursdays and Fridays. So we leave Wednesday as a flex day right in the middle of the week. Now, the flex day can be used if we have rain early in the week. And so we push off a day. Now, all of a sudden, we're setting on Tuesday, Wednesday, finishing on Thursday, Friday, which means now we're using quick set concrete rather than your standard concrete, because we want to make sure it's set up completely by the time we get there. But we'll make adjustments on the product offering. We'll set posts on Tuesday, Wednesday, finish on Thursday, Friday. If there's rain projected later in the week, we'll set posts on Monday, Tuesday, then we'll finish on Wednesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday, depending on when that rain's coming in. Or we might set on Monday, Wednesday. We try to accommodate for whatever day. Typically, we don't see a week of rainouts. Typically, we'll have a day where it rains a lot, gets it over with, and then we're done and moving on. And we work in the rain too. When I say rain, I mean downpour, to where water is running off that yard, and we would do damage to the yard should we, take, Dingo is a fairly light piece of walk behind equipment, but still, and we use the wide tracks. We try to take every precaution possible, but sometimes, our crew will show up. The crew chief will walk the yard and say, "No, this is way too wet. We're going to do some damage here if we take this machinery out on the yard." Sometimes sometimes we're on that scenario if it's a newly sodded yard and you can walk ruts into new sod. So, especially like through where a gate opening would be. So as you're building out that fence, all your guys are walking through this 1 4-foot access point. They'll walk ruts right through sod. What we found is using Wednesday as a flexible day helps with trying to account for weather. This year we worked 2 Saturdays. Typically, I don't like to ask my guys to work Saturdays because they work so many hours through the week. They need time away. They need time to go home and reset, spend time with their family, spend time with loved ones, spend time with friends, to get away from work and to get it off their mind, so that when they show up Monday, They're fresh and ready to go. So we avoid Saturdays like the plague. We will work late on weekdays to avoid Saturdays. And like I said, the flex day typically helps. But sometimes it's unavoidable. We work 2 Saturdays this year. So we will work a Saturday if flex days just aren't catching up and we're getting further behind. We'll work a Saturday to get good and caught up. That's what works for us. Your experience might vary. Yeah, so it's very real. And I understand. Like, let's try to be as specific as possible. Let's try to use the grammatically correct words for what we're trying to describe. Absolutely, 100%. I understand. But, it comes to a point where, as I'm sitting reading the comments, the thought that goes through my head is like, listen, you understood what I was saying. It's not like I used a phrase just completely incorrectly that it confused the conversation. If you're watching for, content, if you're watching for, if comprehension, right? You're comprehending what I'm saying. Now, did I use the incorrect word? Yes. Did I use the word level instead of plumb? Absolutely. I understand. I will repent if it's necessary, but you got it, right? When I say the post is level, you knew I meant that the post is perfectly plumb, that is perfectly straight in alignment with the world. But now I try to make it. I mean, the comments work though, right? Because now I try to do my best to use the word plumb instead of the word level. Yeah. At least it made it entertaining YouTube content. And that's right. Like, that's what we're here for, right? Is no one wants to watch a channel that like just is very stiff and everything, is monotone and everything comes out very seriously and uses the exact correct words and the exact correct time. No one wants to watch that, right? And my point of this channel is not to be the most grammatically correct person in the world. Like, that's not my intent. That's not my dreams or ambitions. My dreams and ambition is to help fence guys and help homeowners that are doing DIY projects around the house. Try to help them avoid pitfalls that I fell in and that I've seen other contractors fall in. To try to help them avoid those, right? And so if they can comprehend what I'm saying, then I think it's mission accomplished. But some folks like, I just read it. Okay, I'll follow with the next comment here in a minute. Some folks just like to write comments. But my thought here, though, is any comment's a good comment, right? So, and I respond. Typically, I respond to those comments because they still come in. This channel that video has been up for when did we say that went out? April, so 8 months ago. And it's 8 months old, and I've said so. My comment is still, my response is still, I absolutely understand and agree. I appreciate your feedback. I guess they don't read the comments before they post them, but that's fine because YouTube doesn't differentiate between constructive criticism and not. They just see comments and they see. And here's the thing too. Now, within reason. So the thumbs up versus thumbs down. Thumbs up is definitely a good signal, but a thumbs down is still an engagement, right? So they want to see your proportions to be to the positive on the thumbs up to thumbs down. I think our channel, let's click over real quick and we will look at this together. It'll show me, let's see, where is it? It's overview possibly. It's probably engagement, I bet. It'll show me the ratio. Where is it? Not reach, maybe overview. It could be audience though. Where is it? So this is also a side note. This is kind of interesting too, right? So almost 80% of the viewers are in the United States, much like today's viewers. I've heard states throughout the United States, but we haven't heard any regions outside the United States. Sometimes we get fencing brothers and sisters, fence fam in Canada. We had a gentleman here a few weeks ago from London. So So 6.5% come from Canada, 6% come from the United Kingdom, then Australia and New Zealand, which is incredible. Like, if you would have asked me, prior to starting this channel, like, hey, you think you'll reach people like in Canada or Australia, New Zealand, like Canada, I could see brothers and sisters to the north, right? But if you'd asked me Australia, New Zealand, I wouldn't have thought that in the world. So if you're watching the replay and you're from Australia or New Zealand, welcome. I really appreciate you guys. This is something we got to work on. So only about 2.5% of the people that watch my video are actually subscribed to the channel. So this is the point where my team would like me to stop, I'm sure, and say, if you haven't subscribed yet, look right below this video, and it will say subscribe. Click that button, please, because that lets YouTube know. YouTube obviously watches this to see how many people that watch my video actually subscribe to the video. That's important to them, so it's important to me. If you wouldn't mind subscribing. And when you do, here's a fun fact. When you do, whether it's this channel or any channel out there, always click the bell, because the default is the default notification. I forget what they call it. Is you get notified like 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 videos. You'll actually see that notification. If it's a channel you want to watch like all of their content, so like this channel, I put out 1 recorded video a week and 1 live a week. It's not a lot. So when you set notifications to all, YouTube sends you notification each time I start creating content, which is twice a week. So that's a little blurb on that. This is kind of to be expected. 94% is male, because currently the fencing industry, for whatever reason, is still fairly male dominated. That being said, we've got a ton of great females in the industry. So our residential division is headed up by my sister, and she's doing, admittedly, probably a better job than I did at handling that. So mainly because my attention was pulled in a lot of different directions. But anyway, and then it shows us that 35 to 44 years old is kind of our largest age demographic. But that's not what we're looking for, is it? We were looking for thumbs up to thumbs down. So I know it does it on the video content. Let's check out the analytics on, or there it is. So 94%, 94.1% is where we're at. 32 likes, 2 dislikes. So I don't know who dislikes a positive review, but there's two folks out there that do. And then it also shows us like on the lives. So last week's live, 2 people were like, nah, not for me. 17 people gave it a thumbs up. 2 people were like, nope. Now, we're doing well so far. We're at 14 thumbs up so far, and I appreciate that. If you're going to just give us a thumbs down, just go ahead and exit straight out of here without giving a thumbs down, please. But yeah, so anyway, YouTube tracks that. They like to see it in a positive, 92% is a good rate, a good ratio. So yeah, YouTube watches all this. And so as a YouTube creator, that's all new to me, right? So is trying to keep up with all the analytics and figuring out what all this stuff means. But all right. So here's the comment that I chuckled at. If it's square, it's level. Yes. But you're going to get me in trouble, because when we're talking about level versus plumb, if it's square, it could possibly not be level, though, because we're not talking about what it's square to. When in fencing terms, when me and my guys are talking about square, we're eyeing it in, if we're talking about 4x4 being in square, it's going to be eye down is the finish edge that we're going to be nailing 2x4s to. Is it aligned with all the posts down the row, right? So is it flush or is it squared to the rest of the post? So just because it's squared doesn't necessarily mean it's level or plumb. Listen, Sudsill, bringing these terms up brings out the grammar professionals, and we don't need any constructive criticism from them. But if they're here, welcome. Boo Boo Bang, what is up? Boo Boo Bang Bang, what is up? I saw your comment last week that you missed out, probably because by this time last week, I'd already ducked out to go see if it was time for the little one to show up, which it was not, thankfully. But welcome. I'm glad you got to make it. Thankful you're here. And you're from another Tennessee Fence fam. So what does that make it? 3, I think. 3 Fence fam from Tennessee. I think you can count Texas as a different country. Well, easy. I've got friends in Texas. I've got buddies, close friends and just acquaintances. I know folks in Texas. Most all of them are good people. We're not going to get into different countries. Now, if we're talking about California, maybe. Just a joke. Thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that a lot. It helps the channel out quite a bit. All right, so when we're talking about Tennessee, let's talk about so this week, the AFA came out on Monday and said that Fence Tech for 2021 is canceled. Not postponed, not relocated, canceled. And man, that's disappointing, right? It's I was looking forward to that. I'm sure you guys were looking forward to it. But if you guys saw my live interview with Tony, and we did a couple we snipped that into a couple pre-recorded videos too. Man, Tony's passionate about this industry, and he was passionate about getting Fence Tech done. Before the video, he and I had a chance to interact via this platform before I pressed live or whatever. And he was so stoked on. I think he had just gotten back from Nashville. They went out to Nashville like 3 times. Just to make sure, meet with the city leaders, also meet with the venue staff and make sure, they were following all the health department protocols, make sure they knew what the up-to-date protocols were and how the venue was going to handle it to keep everyone safe, what AFA needed to do on their part to make sure everyone was safe and interacting, in a safe way. Tony was so passionate about getting that done. So when I read it Monday morning as I got up. And on the face value, I was disappointed, that it couldn't get done. I was excited for it. That was going to be the first major thing, major event that we had done, maybe that we had done this year. I guess they got Fence Tech done early this year, but you know what I mean. I haven't been to any trainings, since late February, early March. Haven't been in any conferences. Haven't seen my Fence fam, right? I was excited. But then I thought about how passionate Tony was about it. And guys, there had to be, and Tony hasn't come out to talk about it, right? He hasn't talked about it publicly. I don't think it's fair to ask him until, he's ready to say, and he might not be ready to ever say what was the reasoning behind it. But I would guess, if I were just to purely guess out of the blue, I would say it was probably a health department issue that said, the likelihood of you getting this amount of people in here safely and having places for them to stay, having places for them to eat, where are they going at when they're not at this venue? I think the city probably just said it's not going to happen. It probably can't happen safely. And if I were guessing, it was probably taken out of Tony's hands. Because me knowing Tony the way I do and how passionate he was about getting Fence Tech done, he would have done it in the parking lot. If that's what it came to, if they said, hey, it has to be outdoor only, me knowing Tony, he would have said, how much does it cost to rent that stadium out? We'll do it outdoors only. We'll do it in the stadium, because the Titan Stadium is right across the river. It's open air. Is it? Now I'm questioning myself. I'm pretty sure it's open air. Anyway, he would have done it in the parking lot if he could get it done. So my guess is that decision was outside his hands, outside his control. But I was pretty disappointed about it. I was. What are your thoughts on shadow box fencing? What are the do's and do nots when designing and building? Also, what do you think about boxing and trimming the top of the fence? So we do shadow box fence, not as much as privacy fence. I'm not a fan of shadow box fence from an installer side for sure. And from a homeowner's perspective, the house that I live in, when we moved in, when the neighborhood was initially constructed, the way there's covenants and restrictions. There's an HOA board, and that in the initial phases or initial stages of the neighborhood, the developer was the HOA, right? And he liked shadow box fences. He wanted shadow box fences, but the covenants and restrictions were written in such a way, which is common in our area, that says here's some guidelines. Ultimate approval is per architectural committee. So the guidelines were 6 feet tall, and it didn't ever specifically call for shadow box fence, but the developer was the architectural committee. He wanted shadow box fence. Shadow box went in the neighborhood. So I had it as a homeowner, and I'm telling you, like, I understand the perceived benefits is that it looks the same on both sides, except for when it's installed with wood posts, somebody still got to see those wood posts, right? But it looks the same from both sides and on and on. The problem is it's not private, so you can see through it. Depending on what size boards and what overlap you use, you get at any sort of angle, and you can just see right through it. Also, for me, as a guy that maintains his lawn, the lawn care is a nightmare on shadow box fence, right? Because you can't get the grass that grows up in between those pickets. It just, unless the pickets are however tall you mow your grass, 4 or 6 inches, whatever it is, unless that fence is like 8 inches off the ground, you're not weed eating under it. And so weeds and grass grow up in between. And so now you spray it because you don't want weeds growing. So you spray it, and then you kill the grass under the fence. Now you got to strip of dead grass under your fence. Not a fan from the homeowner's perspective. I think most fence installers will agree with me. Installing it is also, no one enjoys installing shadow box fence. You're nailing on both sides of the fence. It takes at least twice as much labor to install that fence because you're taking time to, now you've got a jig that we use a jig to measure overlap or to space the pickets out proportionally. And then, that way the boards on the opposite side will overlap correctly. And you're using more lumber because, for us, for a picket that's 5.5 inches, we use 1.5 inches of overlap. So, you're using almost twice as much product too. Not a fan of it. Do we install it? Sure. Because there's still neighborhoods in our area that do require it specifically. They call it out in the covenants and restrictions that say, it must be in the shadow box design. So in our neighborhood, it didn't strictly call it out in the covenants. And then I went and met with the architectural committee. And I said, guys, as a fence guy, as a fence professional, I'm coming to you and I'm saying your opinion should change on this. It's more difficult to install, so you should understand that means it's more expensive as a fence. It's also a lot harder to maintain. So every fence in this neighborhood either has grass and weeds growing up through the fence, or they have dead grass underneath the fence. You're either not going to cut it or you're going to kill it with chemicals. I don't think either one of those are a great scenario either. So now our neighborhood, thankfully, the architectural committee, which fast forward a few years, now I sit on the architectural committee, but they were kind of changed their decision, and now we can install privacy fence. So I had waited, to install my fence until I knew that was going to happen. So not a fan of shadow box fence. Boxing and trimming at the top of fence. So it's not common in our area. No one actually does it in our area. I show it at home shows, and so I'll show it in our display. So in our home show display, we'll build out an entire 40-foot. So it's an 8-foot deep, 40-foot long display, and we'll just build out fence. Most of it's wood fence because that's predominantly what we do on the residential side. And I always do one section, the end cap that everyone's going to see. I do it double-sided, and I do it cap and trim. I think it looks incredible. I think it looks so nice and so finished. I know if Dan's still here, I know Dan Fence King down in Louisiana, I know they do quite a bit of cap and trim. We show it and I price it out. No one buys it. So just because it's not really common in our area, I think it looks nice. If the customers would pay for it, I'd love to build it. I think there's a song like that. Born and raised in Nashville, and I must say this town is a mess right now. Look at Murfreesboro, Tennessee as a potential host, much easier to work with locally. So Stainless Steel Experts did a training. So they're out of the Nashville area. They're east of Nashville, if my memory serves, southeast of Nashville, but they service the Nashville area. So they did a training. Where was it? Lebanon. We have a Lebanon here, we call it Lebanon here in Missouri. I think you guys call it Lebanon. They did the training there for that exact reason, just because Nashville was. So we went to Nashville a couple nights during the training, just to experience Nashville. I mean, if you travel that far, you want to go, right? Go Tootsie's, or I mean, just anywhere. I like Tootsie's, but yeah, it was crazy. Like everywhere has to close by, I don't know, 10 or something. It was something crazy like that. You could not stand up, so you have to sit down at all times. You cannot dance. You can't stand up. If you do stand up, you have to go directly to the bathroom and directly back. Like you almost need a bathroom pass. You know, it feels like elementary school. So I agree. Nashville is a bit of a mess. So I understood when they canceled it. We consider ourselves here in Texas as another country. There's Texas, then y'all. All right, that's fair. Okay. Yeah, okay. Titans is open air. Well, and see, that's what I'm saying. Like, if it were up to Tony, he'd do it in the stadium or do it in the stadium's parking lot. You know what I mean? If he's like, hey, if whatever we need to do to get this thing done, let's do it. He would have made it happen. But so I have a feeling the city probably shut that down. And you guys, I mean, you being from Nashville, you probably understand this better than anybody. But when I talk to folks from Nashville, they're not thrilled with how the city government has handled the pandemic conditions. So, yeah, you'll probably know more about it than I would, but it seems like everyone's pretty upset with the city government about how they've handled things in general. So that just kind of leads me to believe I would almost bet the city shut that down. I didn't think lawn care issue. No mo shadow box fence. Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. Shadow box, it's just a nightmare. It's a nightmare to install. It's a nightmare to maintain. You know, if you install it with Postmaster Post, I guess it does look the same on both sides, but no thanks. I like the B on B cedar look. Board on board, yeah. So that's actually in this week's video I did with April, she did a board on board cedar fence. I like board on board a lot. I wish it would catch on here. We've done 2 this year, board on board. I like them a lot. Now, it has similar drawbacks to Shadowbox in that it does take more labor because you're trying to lay them out exactly correct, and it takes more materials because you're doing the overlap, but you don't have the gaps on it. I am a huge fan of board on board. I wish we did it more, honestly. All right, you said Lebanon the right way first. We know the outsiders if they say it like Middle Eastern country. Okay. Well, see, that's the thing. I was saying Lebanon, and then everyone's like, oh, you mean Lebanon? Lebanon. Like, oh, no, Lebanon. Whatever. Okay. We have a Lebanon here, and we call it Lebanon. So, yeah. You build any fence for Brad Pitt or famous Branson people, name drop. So, I'm probably not going to answer that. So, I don't know. Some people like their privacy, right? So, I don't know. I mean, yeah. I'll say this. So, Brad Pitt does not live here, but Brad Pitt's family lives here. And we'll say that. Here's the thing. On residential fences, like there's like privacy. I think there's personal privacy issues. I don't care to talk about it, but I wouldn't want to overstep, especially on a platform like this. Yeah, we do. I mean, customers are customers, right? Everybody needs fence. So we do. On commercial, I don't think it's as big of a deal. So we're the world headquarters of Bass Pro Shops. So my granddad knew Johnny Morris, the owner of Bass Pro, back in the day. So we do Bass Pro's work. All of the subsidiary, Morris Properties, etc., the Big Cedar, the Top of the Rock, just all of his different properties. We do fence for them. Yeah, we do work for O'Reilly Automotive. I know there's a lot of O'Reilly Automotive shops throughout the country. You work for them. Yeah, I mean, we're a standard fence company. We do fence for quite a lot of people. I don't build fence, but I used to do pond and fountain work. Okay, we served George Jones, Sheryl Crow several times. There you go. There's some name drops for you. Yeah, very cool. Well, guys, it is 5:37, so we've made it to our 2.5 hour mark. I appreciate you guys jumping in and joining us and sticking around for it. I appreciate that a lot too. If you guys haven't got a chance, go ahead and give this video a like. It means a lot, as we looked at just a few minutes ago. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. When you do, hit the notification bell, set notifications to all. But for now, I'd like to go play with my family on Christmas Eve and play with the kiddos and watch their excitement. I've got a little son that's 3, and Jackson loves the idea. Like, he's right at that right age where he loves the idea of Christmas. So I'm going to go play with him, and try to feed off his excitement for the holiday, and we'll go from there. If you guys have any more questions, drop in the comments below, because after this video ends, it then processes for a day or so, goes back up on the YouTube channel as a pre-recorded live, and I watch the comments on that. I'll watch out for your comments, and then, yeah. So if you have more comments, be sure to ask them in the comments below. If you have questions, also, we have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/TheRealJoeEverest, where you can actually post on the communities tab. Unfortunately, on YouTube, you guys can't post on my communities tab. I can post on it and you can respond to it, but it's not quite the same. You can also message me through the Facebook page. But yeah. Merry Christmas to you. If you guys celebrate Christmas, I want to wish you guys a Merry Christmas, a Merry Christmas Eve. I hope you guys get to spend it with the ones you love and the ones you care for. Yeah, hope you guys have had a good year. I really do. But if I can help you guys with anything, as always, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to be as helpful as I can. But for now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make for good neighbors. Have a Merry Christmas, and I'll see you guys next week.